you for coming in.
It's a pleasure.
It's lovely. We've got so much to talk to you about.
For sure.
Before we talk about football, right?
Yes.
I was just going over old stuff that you've done, right? And I was watching with my producer Ollie this morning when you did the Sports Personality of the Year. I think it was 09, 07, I can't remember. It was nearly 20 years ago. And you stood up in front of everyone, right?
Yes.
You gave, as Smithy, you gave this massive speech.
Smithy won Coach of the Year.
And I said to the producer, he's got a good memory, right? How nerve-wracking must that have been for you? Was that just insane? Did you have autocue on that? Or was that...
No, there was a prompter, but the issue was with that is we shot that 8 minutes before they went live for Sports Personality, so we only had one. We could only do it once.
Yeah. From
the standing up in the crowd, the walking through, doing all the stuff. So also, we had to make sure that lots of people were in the audience because as Sports Personality, they all wait in this room before they go out, and we had to go up to like Freddie Flintoff, and what we had to say to him, we had to go, Freddie, we're going to do this thing. Don't laugh along, okay? Because it can't look like it's like a sort of roast monologue. Yeah, which is why Freddie's such a brilliant actor. Looks so angry in that we just like make out like it's real. Don't just laugh along when we start saying all these things to different people. And the only instruction I was given was you can't interact with Capello because they were like, you're not allowed to interact with Capello.
The Six Nations, where giants do battle and legends are made. Epic sports which demands an epic voiceover every time. And actually has an interesting story as well. It all started back in 1871 when Scotland beat England in the very first international rugby match. The other home nations were a bit jealous, wanted in on the action, and after England played Wales in 1882, they all decided to hold an annual festival of international rugby, or the Home International Championship, which kicked off a year after. Now, the first decade was dominated by England and Scotland until Wales finally won in 1893 and Ireland a year later. After years of dipping in and out of the championship, France was invited to join full-time in 1910. But because France isn't a home nation, they had to give it a rebrand and settle on the Five Nations. But France were actually kicked out of the tournament in 1931. They were accused of paying players when rugby was still strictly an amateur sport. They had to wait years to be let back in. But after World War II, the Five Nations resumed. Didn't always run smoothly though, like in 1973 when all 5 teams won 2 matches and lost 2 matches. Now, because they didn't do points difference at the time, they just decided that everyone was the champion. It's like trying to keep kids happy, you know, the whole, you're all winners. In the years following, other teams in Europe started to get better at rugby and actually got to a stage where they were regularly beating teams in the Five Nations. In 1997, Italy beat Scotland, France and Ireland home and away. So 2 years later, the Five Nations invited Italy in, creating the Six Nations as we know it. In recent years, there have been calls to expand the tournament further to other European teams. Georgia and Portugal have been prime candidates to join of late. It's also been suggested there could be 2 tiers with promotion and relegation to promote growth of the sport in Europe. But the existing nations are a bit reluctant. So for now, it looks like the Six Nations, or Six Nations, or Sei Nazioni, is here to stay.
Hello and welcome to Danny Kelly's Trans-Europe Express. I'm Kevin Hatchard, deputising for Danny, and alongside me tonight, the Ronaldinho of European football analysis, the stylish showman that is Andy Brassell. Tonight we're going to analyse what Chelsea are getting with the hiring of Xabi Alonso. There's another angst-filled Mbappe watch, with Real Madrid lurching from controversy to controversy. Have Juventus thrown away their chances of qualifying for the Champions League? Or bringing the twists and turns as well from a crazy relegation scrap in La Liga. We're going to look ahead to the Europa League final, and there'll be a South American half hour, including the great Tim Vickery. The Trans-Europe Express has left the station, and you're all very welcome. Andy Brassell, how the devil are you?
I'm all right, Kevin, despite the results going on around us in Liga tonight. We're at 45 minutes before the end of the season, and it's not unrolling quite as I wanted at the moment, if I'm to take off my neutral hat for a second. But other than that,
I don't think you have to wear the neutral hat, Andy, to be honest. If we're talking about Lyon, we all know. There's no point hiding it, is there really? Go on then. Let's go straight to the Liga desk. There we are. Give us the latest, Andy, because it's all going on at once, isn't it? All of the games are happening at once.
Yeah, for the second week in a row. They do this for the last 2 weekends in Liga. And so at the start, we had Lille as the team in possession of third place, and they still are, despite the fact they're losing 1-0 against Auxerre, who are trying to avoid the playoff place and keep Nice in it, which would be bad news for Sir Jim Ratcliffe's future profits, I suspect. They're losing 1-0. Lassin Sinayoko has scored the goal there. Lyon not able to take advantage, started fourth, 3-0 down at home to Lens, who've had such a brilliant season and showing just how good they are in that first half. But Rennes not able to take advantage of that. They're 2-0 down at Marseille. Come on, who loses at Marseille these days?
Absolutely nobody. It's all happening as well in Italy. Now, we've had a lot of the games already happen in terms of Champions League and what have you, but the relegation battle is fascinating, and all of the relegation threatened teams have actually come to play tonight because it's half time in those games, or getting that way. Cremonese are winning their game against Udinese, but Lecce are winning against Sassuolo, and Cagliari winning against Torino. So it's kind of as you were, really. Cremonese in that final relegation place at the moment. Lecce a point ahead of them, and Cagliari well clear of both of them. There's also a game in La Liga, the champions Barcelona 1-0 up at half-time against Real Betis. Now, let's give you our poll for tonight, and it's relevant to what we're going to talk about in the first section of the show. The question for you is, where will Xabi Alonso's Chelsea finish next season? Because we know that Xabi Alonso is going to be in charge of the Blues next term. Here are your 4 options. Are they going to be Premier League title winners? Are they going to qualify for the Champions League? Is it going to be maybe Europa League or Conference League qualification? Or is it going to be worse than that? They're your 4 options. They'll either win the title, simply qualify for the Champions League, make the Europa League or the Conference League, or not qualify for Europe whatsoever. Get in touch on all of our social media channels, or you can text 81089. So, Andy, this is really interesting, this hiring of Xabi Alonso by Chelsea, because it appears they've changed his title. They normally say head coach. It's going to be manager. That seems to be a nod towards giving him a bit more power. And I think you look at his 2 experiences, one with Bayer Leverkusen, where he had an incredibly good relationship with the board there. And you look at Real Madrid, where he simply didn't have enough authority, didn't have enough power, and only lasted a few months. It feels like that kind of authority is going to be very important for him at Stamford Bridge.
Yeah, it does. And I think that the title is important. I think it puts everyone on notice. Now, it seems it's something that not Xabi Alonso himself has asked for. But it's clear that in an ideal world, he would like to be just the coach, really, do the coaching, and have some people upstairs who he trusted to get on with it. Now, look, the structure of Chelsea is something that's been talked about until the cows come home. What we can say is it couldn't be any more different than the structure that so suited him at Bayer Leverkusen. Now, they've not quite been able to do the same thing that Manchester City did for Pep Guardiola when he arrived, in that they set the upstairs table for him perfectly so he could just get on with the coaching. Of course, he's not arrived in England with the same status as a coach that Pep Guardiola did, so we have to underline that. But there has to be, if he's taken this job, Kev, there has to be a sense that he's going to get more power than he did at Real Madrid. He's going to get more power and influence than previous Chelsea coaches did. And that's why I think there is the title.
I mean, it's a bit of a coup to get him, really, isn't it? Because
it is.
You look at what he did in Germany. I mean, it's an astonishing achievement. The first ever unbeaten League and Cup double in German football history. Never been done before. Even Bayern have never done it. So that was phenomenal. And in that same season, got to a European final and only lost to Atalanta in Dublin in that Europa League final. And even though a bit of the gloss was taken off at Real Madrid, we're still talking about one of the hottest properties out there on the coaching market. So Chelsea must have bent to a certain extent to get him. Are you surprised that he's made the move so early in the summer?
I'm surprised that Liverpool hadn't had a go. I would say that.
I think a lot of their fans are surprised as well.
Yeah, I think they are. But look, it's clear that knowing a bit about Xabi Alonso as I do, and like interviewed him a couple of times, and it's clear that he is someone who does not make hasty decisions. You know, he is not a coach who, like, you find coaches who want to work so much, sometimes it leads them to make decisions that they might not otherwise. It leads them to make poor decisions in terms of choice of job. I don't think Xabi Alonso is ever going to do that. He never feels under pressure to make a decision. Obviously, from a financial perspective, he doesn't need to leap into anything else, but he always needs to feel that the conditions are right, that the job is right, that the people around him are right, all of those sort of things. So look, Chelsea haven't been working on this for a couple of weeks since Liam Rosenior has gone. They have been talking to him for a while. It's clear, because for them to present him with the project, for him to go away and think about it and then give them a response, I think realistically this probably has to be at least a couple of months worth of talking.
I think one of the things that's really interesting about the Liverpool aspect is that one of the sticks being used to beat Arne Slot with at the moment, and I get it, I do understand it, is that it's so far removed in some ways from the Jurgen Klopp style, the Fall Gas style, the gegenpressing, the kind of really high energy, high intensity style. Well, if anybody thought they were going to get that with Xabi Alonso, they haven't really watched much of Xabi Alonso's teams, because that's not really how they play. Yes, he wants them to work without the ball. I get that. But a lot of it's about quite careful possession and kind of working your way up the pitch. There is some pace in it, but it's quite measured at times.
Yeah, and he's not wedded to any particular style as well. I remember him talking me through how, you know, it's not a good idea to be stuck to any particular style. He said, you know, when he came in at Leverkusen, of course, they were struggling at the bottom of the Bundesliga. So they had to find a way to be competitive. Then they had to find a way to win. Then they had to find a way to dominate games. You know, it was a thing that will happen in stages. And I think that will be the case as well with Chelsea. You know, he really needs to put his print on this squad of players and really create his own team. And that is not going to happen overnight. I think coming in at the start of a season where he's got a chance to affect the transfer window and he's got the chance at a full pre-season is very, very important. But again, even if he's not coming in like he did at Real Madrid, like probably in retrospect, again, against his better judgment for the Club World Cup, because he didn't want to come before the Club World Cup, and they kind of held him to that, really. It is still going to be a shortened summer because of the World Cup. You know, there's no getting away from that. So obviously everyone's going to be in the same boat. But for a new coach who has a bit of clear up to do before he's creating his own team, there will need to be patience. But obviously he will have been promised that, because that's absolutely what he didn't get at Real Madrid.
Yeah, that leads me on to the next point, Andy, I guess. Could it ever have worked for him at Real Madrid, a guy that is quite top down? Yeah, well, there we go. We can move on to the next point then, really, because they never really, because Perez, I guess, Florentino Perez, who we're going to talk about later, actually, the Real Madrid president, because he was never fully on board. This was never 100% his hire. He kind of reluctantly waved it through. he never really had that full authority, didn't he? Did he? And as soon as the players rebelled, that was the end.
No, I mean, you don't feel that there are the sort of names at Chelsea that would really put the player power pinch on Xabi Alonso. I don't really see that as being a thing. What he really needs to be is backed like he was by the CEO, Lance. You can tell what I'm watching at the moment. Leverkusen.
He's always thinking about Liga. Irrepressible.
He needs to be backed in the same way he was by Fernando Caro, the CEO there, and by Simon Rolfes, the sporting director. For him to have that level of comfort, to know that he was getting the players that he wanted, to know that they were working together in the same direction, all of that was super important. And I guess, will he have that sort of ability to have that influence? Because Maresca was clearly infuriated by the fact that he didn't.
Yeah.
Liam Rosenior, it was never even close to being that, obviously. So I guess, only time will tell. Can a leopard change its spots? Can Chelsea change the way that they run? And, we don't know, do we?
That is the $1 million question, or in Chelsea's case, probably the $1 billion question. We do have major golf happening tonight. Let's head over to the PGA Championship. Really fascinating battle. talkSPORT's Rupert Bell has the latest for us.
Well, the unheralded Matty Ship is holding on to the lead. He's currently 6 under, 2 under for his round. He began with a rather tentative approach to his final round, but some birdies now have put him in pole position. But there are plenty of big names ganging up behind the 28-year-old German. Justin Thomas is the leader in the clubhouse with a 65. Cameron Smith has rediscovered some form that deserted him since he joined the Live Golf Tour, because he's at 5 under, 3 under for his round, playing the 14th. Nick Taylor, the Canadian, is playing the 8th at 5 under. Rory McIlroy just might be ruining the fact that he missed a golden birdie opportunity at the par 5 9th, and he is becalmed at 4 under par, 1 under for his round. John Rahm, after a terrific start with opening birdies, but he's hit the buffers and he's currently back at 4 under through 7. Other players in the mix, Justin Rose not out of it yet, 1 under for his round, playing the 12th at 3 under par. Aaron Rice, sadly the Englishman, has slipped down the field with bogeys to slip to 3 under, 1 under for his round. And Scotty Scheffler, well, his race is run. He's finished at 2 under par. He'll be heading off to the US Open in search of a career Grand Slam, but he's been unable to defend his title here at the US PGA.
PGA Championship update on talkSPORT with Arnold Clark. Get the UK's best used car deals guaranteed.
Coming up after the break, it's going to be Mbappe watch.
Let me ask this. Out of all the players that Tottenham have, in terms of technical dribbling ability, is Madders not able to change the direction of the ball at drop of a hat? Is he not, though? Is that not his bag? Yeah. That's what he can do, right? Yeah. Come on now.
How often?
Come on now.
What we talking? You're talking about James Maddison.
Like, here we go. He hates him, innit? Yeah, here we go.
I don't care about James Maddison, but we can't pretend that James Maddison is some sort of...
Madders would walk into your squad right now.
James Maddison?
Maddison would walk into your squad right now.
There isn't a Chelsea...
And furthermore, in terms of your 10s and creative players, if Madders was on his day, he'd be the best one in your team. On his day, yeah.
This is the most wild thing I've ever heard.
Who are your cams? It's not. Cole Palmer.
You do wild comments.
Palmer.
It's very rare that I'm speechless, but this is that
Cole
moment.
Palmer, I'm a fan of Cole. I think he's great. And on his day, he's an amazing player, yeah. I do think Madders, though, on his day, provides something that you don't have in your squad right now.
James Maddison wouldn't have got into a Chelsea squad in the last 40 years.
That's insane.
There isn't one Chelsea squad.
He's getting in this squad.
There isn't a Chelsea
right
squad
now.
with James
Start for you now.
James Maddison.
While he was injured, he would have started for you.
James, do you know what? If he was part of our squad, do you know what he'd be doing? He'd be vlogging it from the sidelines, sitting with opposing fans' YouTube channel.
You know what, yeah? My Spurs friends have warned me about you, yeah?
Yeah, trust me.
But look, I respect it. I actually respect what you're saying. Like, it's fair enough. You're entitled to an opinion. You're wrong, but you're entitled to an opinion.
I'm completely correct.
No,
you are wrong. Trust me. You're wrong. You're actually wrong. He's wrong. Tell him.
Do you know part of the reason why Tottenham are in this predicament?
Go on.
It's because of the standards that are set by vice-captain James Maddison, sitting in the stands, vlogging with angry Ginge as you concede goals against Man United.
I have no problem with that at all. I think he's a great player. If he wants to vlog while he's injured, he's got an ACL. What do you want him to do? Sit around moping?
That's a Tottenham mentality.
You get in your squad.
All right.
Maddison.
Yeah.
Maddison doesn't
He
get
would.
near it.
You've got so many players in your squad. He would.
By the way,
the same winger.
By the way, I just want to say, Tottenham mentality is Chelsea's mentality to wear that gold badge that you won that Disney Cup. That's your mentality.
You're listening to Trans-Europe Express on talkSPORT. We're going to go straight back to the Ligue 1 desk. Andy Brassell's ready with all the latest scores. And Andy, it's all happening. Plenty of drama.
Yeah, it is and it isn't, Kevin, because we're getting goals, we're getting surprises, but actually everything's staying as it was at the top because the teams who are in third, fourth and fifth can't get it right. We've got Lille still losing 1-0 to Auxerre as things stand. We've got Lyon now 4-0 down at home to Lens. Brilliant goal on the counter-attack by Florian Thauvin. Roman Yaremchuk has just hit the bar for Lyon, but a little bit late there. And can we say Marseille and Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang have extinguished the Champions League hopes of Rennes? Sorry,
there's an Easter egg for people.
Obliged to. It's now Marseille 3, Rennes 0. So that means Marseille are heading towards the Europa League.
If you didn't listen last week, shame on you. But if you didn't listen last week, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang ran amok with a fire extinguisher in the training camp. Not good stuff. In Italy, by the way, extraordinary in the relegation battle because Cagliari, I mean, they'll probably be fine anyway, but they're 2-1 up in their game against Sassuolo. Lecce are winning as well. And then you've got this, Cagliari are rather beating Torino, Lecce are beating Sassuolo, and Cremonese still 1-0 up in their game away at Udinese. So that would be as you were. And going into the final round of matches, it would be between Lecce and Cremonese for that final relegation place. Jamie Vardy with the only goal of the game in Cremonese's game at Udinese at the moment. That's going into the closing stages in all of those. Right, it has been another week at Real Madrid where things haven't really calmed down. It's time for this.
Mbappe, Mbappe, Mbappe! Sa carrière, le Paris Saint-Germain, Mbappe! Mbappe! Little give and go, and Mbappe's in! Oh, it's 2-2! He scored twice in 2 minutes! Tête de Kylian Mbappe. Allez, Kylian!
It continues to be a very controversial and noteworthy season at Real Madrid. Andy, we knew last weekend that Real Madrid had lost the La Liga title race, suffered the ignominy of losing to Barcelona in El Clasico, and therefore had to watch Barcelona parading around with the trophy. And even though things improved on the pitch against Real Oviedo, they didn't really improve for Kylian Mbappe.
No, they didn't. So he was back in the squad after having, of course, gone on holiday, after having, of course, Instagrammed a la Madrid in front of his telly during El Clasico. They were 2-0 down, so maybe he could have done it like 20 minutes earlier. And then, of course, he came on against Oviedo as a substitute and was booed. Now, to a lot of people, this might have been a shock. Not the first time he's been booed at the Bernabeu, and you could argue he's not been booed as much as Vinny Jr. Well, you can definitely argue it because this is truth.
Yeah.
This season, but I think given the PR of it, given the week and a half that he's had, it felt significant to people all around the world who thought, well, he really is in trouble here. And it's remarkable in a season that he scored 41 club goals in, by the way. He is in a position where you wonder what his future at Real Madrid is. Now, obviously, this wasn't made any better, really, by the fact that straight after the game, he was asked about would he have liked to start the game. It's a gimme, you know. He did say it's the coach's choice, but then he said, the coach told me, Alvaro Arbeloa told me, that I was fourth choice striker for this. Now, they don't actually have 4 strikers, so that was a bit of a weird thing to come out with.
They listed Mastantuono, who's not a striker, for a start.
Yes, and this was put to Arbeloa in the press conference, and he said, well, I didn't say that, so I don't know what to say to you, really. Now, look, we know Alvaro Arbeloa is not going to be there as head coach next season, but we also know he's very valued by Florentino Perez, the president, and you expect he'll probably go back to another role in the club, perhaps to being in charge of Castilla, the B team. And, of course, he's someone who's really close to Jose Mourinho, which I think is quite interesting if Mourinho does indeed end up getting the job as we'd expected. And he was asked about this in a Benfica press conference this week, and Mourinho didn't really make much reference to Mbappe, but he said, you know, Arbeloa is a guy who did everything for me, went above and beyond. So basically, he was making clear whose camp he was in. And I think that's very, very important for Kylian Mbappe's Real Madrid future.
It's a really difficult one, isn't it? Because you look at the list of clubs that A, could afford him, and B, could have the pull to actually bring him in. It's very, very short. And so we're led to believe this was the dream for Mbappe. And he's not won things, so that hasn't worked out. But on a personal level, he's been scoring goals left, right and centre.
That is true, but I can't help but feel that it's very easy to get a reputation in football and very, very hard to get rid of it. I mean, there was one of the Madrid dailies this week said that the Bernabeu has never loved prima donnas. I thought, well, hang on, but I think
it's loved one or two.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. But the idea that he is like too high maintenance for Real Madrid, look, whether that's true or not, if that's the perception, that's incredibly damaging to the Mbappe brand. And look, football's a small community. Word travels fast. I guess you have to ask the question, not only is anyone able to afford him, do they want him? I think you have to ask that, because especially what's happened with PSG since he's left. And so from the outside, at least, from people who don't follow PSG that closely, and some who do, there's a perception of, well, it's all gone right since we got rid of the superstar. So who's really going to want to lean into that? It's a really good question. Now, of course, he came back into the team for Real Madrid today. Arbeloa is not a grudge holder, it appears. He set up the only goal of the game, the winning goal scored by Vinicius away at Sevilla. I mean, it shouldn't have been a goal because Mbappe stopped the ball with one touch, elbowed Carmona, the defender, with the second touch, and then with his third, passed it to Vinicius that put it in. It's one of those ones where you think, oh, yeah, the referee's definitely going to chalk this off, and he didn't. So
another success for VAR.
Yeah, that's right. And he had a goal disallowed for offside as well. So, look, there's no doubting his industry and his willingness to make it work. But there has to be a huge question over whether it actually will work at this point.
Now, we could do a whole hour on this subject, but unfortunately we don't have an hour. But Florentino Perez, who very rarely does any kind of public pronouncement, any kind of press conference, did do what turned out to be a very controversial and bizarre press conference, and then ended up on our favourite TV programme, El Chiringuito.
Well, it's good to know he's a Trans Europe Express listener, isn't it? I mean, he makes us happy.
Yeah.
He makes us happy.
Give the people what they want.
Yeah, at least he does when he's not making outrageously sexist comments, which I think, given that in the press conference where he questioned a female reporter's knowledge of the game, all the classics from a 79-year-old man, I suppose you could say, but that probably didn't end up on the podium of weird things that he said. It basically went on this run. It wasn't really a press conference. It was more like an address, wasn't it?
Yes.
Because there were questions, but I mean, really, they were bits where he just could stop and have a glass of water. He never came close to answering any of them, really, did he? He got stuck into various media outlets. He got stuck into various journalists to their faces, in some cases quite personally. He didn't barely mention Mourinho. He complained about referees. He complained about various other things that had gone wrong for Real Madrid. He built on this when he was on El Chiringuito, of course, with the dramatic music and the dim lighting and all that sort of stuff.
TikTok.
And and he talked about how the Negreira case, of course, about the head of the referees board, who had this relationship with Barcelona, something that Real Madrid have been pushing down really hard on, in a great bit of obfuscation of what Real Madrid's season has actually been, but basically went on there and said Barcelona had been cheating for 20 years. And if you're in the Real Madrid media department, legal department, you're having a heart attack.
Yes.
While he's saying these things. But this really, I think, is a very good week in showing the way that Real Madrid run, to the whim of one man, one 79-year-old man who doesn't really seem that keen on taking advice. And really, the Xabi Alonso thing, which they should be reflecting on a lot at the moment, really, he just seems to have doubled down on that. To have said, oh yeah, because of course he did refer to him this week as himself as the greatest president in the history of the game. That was another highlight, wasn't it? And,
there's a certain president, I think, who'd be proud of some of this, if I'm honest.
Yeah, it was spectacularly Trumpian.
Yeah,
there's no doubt about that. But look, I think that the fact that he's sort of come off the back of this and sort of, rather than reflecting on the Xabi Alonso thing, like you said before, I think he's thinking, oh, well, it proves I was right all along.
Yes, which is pretty much just the catchphrase for Perez all the way through. Lots more Spanish football to come after the break. We're going to talk La Liga.
Ben White is to miss the rest of Arsenal's season and is set to be ruled out of the World Cup. A suspected knee ligament injury for Ben. He picked it up on Sunday. I think it was a 50-50, wasn't it? It was Somerville of West Ham. Now, up until now, Tuchel has ignored Trent Alexander-Arnold since his move to Real Madrid this summer. Could it be goodbye Ben and hello Trent? What do you think?
My gut feeling is Tuchel just doesn't fancy Trent, no matter who's fit or not, to be honest. From a defensive point of view, that's how it feels. The recent squad, he had 36, and he didn't put him in, so I don't see why I'd be putting him in now.
You think he's decided he's not going to be featured?
Feels that way.
Yeah,
I might be completely wrong, but
no matter what,
yeah, I don't think he'd be going. It's a shame for Ben White because he seems to be in a good books with Tuchel, and he's just started to get his form back a little bit, playing regularly because Timber's injury. He's decent player.
Yeah, yeah.
And I know Gary Neville had a little criticism of the way he made that tackle. I kind of make him right in a way, but the problem you've got now, because I missed the final once by dangling a leg. Rio come through me hard, Rio Ferdinand, the way it leads it was, and I did my ligaments, missed the final because of it. And I look back on the tackle and think, yeah, I should have gone in full tilt. Problem you've got now with the way the rules are, especially with the follow-through rule, even if you go in full tilt and you do get the ball, but you catch someone on the way through,
and you get a red card.
Yeah, it actually encourages you to be a bit more tentative.
So what is it when you're going in fairly committed, but don't end up truly committed?
Yeah.
I mean, Gary Neville said Ben White just hangs his leg there. It's poor. He's got to be stronger than that. He's hurt himself there.
Yeah, and that's my point.
He says you're asking for trouble by doing that.
Yeah, he's right.
Big twist in Serie A, just to inform you. Cremonese winning 1-0 at Udinese, and at the moment they would be out of the relegation zone because there's been an equaliser in the game between Sassuolo and Lecce. That would drop Lecce into the drop zone. So fascinating twist there. Now, talkSPORT Breakfast returns tomorrow from 6 a.m. as Jeff Stelling and Ali McCoyster joined by a host of guests, including the former Arsenal goalkeeper David Seaman and the former Southampton and Liverpool striker Ricky Lambert, as they look back on a huge weekend in the world of sport. That's the talkSPORT Breakfast Show tomorrow morning from 6 a.m. Do not miss it. Just brought you the latest from Italy. Andy, anything standing out in Liga?
But no, it's all still miserable, Kev. But
excellent.
Thanks for asking.
Excellent.
It's good to see actually that on the week of Jamie Vardy's Netflix documentary coming out, him and his teammates are doing everything possible to promote it.
Yes, wonderful. What is it? Score first, then party. Is that that's the title of it or something? And that's certainly what he's doing. He's got the
something
first
along
bit.
those lines. Yeah,
Could be a week away from partying. We're going to talk La Liga now. Our headline for this section: Betis bust their way into the Champions League. Betis have qualified for the Champions League by finishing. They're going to finish fifth in La Liga. And what we saw after that success in midweek, Andy, was Isco, who, of course, such an important player for them when he's fit. He was in tears and really quite an emotional moment for him.
Yeah, and it's amazing, I guess, from the outside to think that he is a guy who has won multiple Champions Leagues with Real Madrid and been a huge part of that, by the way, as well. He's not started a single match this season because of injury, but he was so overcome with emotion about, I guess, on a number of fronts. Firstly, being able to make it back into the Champions League next season. And I think part of it as well is to just really acknowledge the fact that the love that he's been shown there. Remember, he was thrown out of Sevilla, their city rivals, after a fight in the dressing room, and there was a move to Union Berlin that fell through, which would have been a weird one. And then
really
then he ends up at Betis, which is perhaps even weirder. And yet it's been brilliant there for him. And the way they've regenerated him, the way they've regenerated Anthony, who's been important for them this season, but not like the only guy. You know, he's been one of a number of contributors. I think Isco wanted to show like acknowledgement for that. But when we talk about contributors everywhere, I think you can say there's been no star standout. You would expect Anthony to run the show, or you would expect Isco to run the show. He hasn't been fit to do so, obviously, but they've had goals from Cucho Hernandez, which perhaps we didn't really expect. We've had goals from Abde, who's been absolutely brilliant this season. Pablo Fornals has been involved as well. He's scored going towards double figures. So after that win against Elche this week, and to think really that atmosphere at their stadium, Heliopolis, as we said last week and many times before, is so much part of the club's soul and personality that this could have been a really difficult season for them. And actually, they've gone to Cartuja, taken the atmosphere with them, and had just an unbelievable season all over again. And of course, it could have fallen apart when they got knocked out of the Europa League, but they didn't let that happen either.
Yeah, that was an extraordinary collapse against Braga, but they've managed to steady the ship. They are now 2-0 down, though, at Barcelona, those two playing tonight. And Rafinha has just got his second goal of the night. He was gifted the ball on the edge of the area by Hector Bellerin, I think, on the edge of the area. His mullet and
not
moustache combination is just absolutely sensational. It really is. Talking of Barcelona, big departure has been confirmed, Andy. Robert Lewandowski, we suspected this would be the case, but we know that he's moving on.
Yeah, and I sometimes think he's not really appreciated what he's done at Barcelona, mainly because they signed him when they couldn't really afford him, and they've been half trying to get rid of him for most of the time since. But the reality is, before tonight, 191 games, 119 goals. You know, when you're 37 years old, obviously Hansi Flick has a lot to do with it. There's a particular connection between the two. He's helped to prolong his career, and he's played great football, certainly last season in winning back the title. But even this season, when he's had a few physical issues, he's gone along at more than a goal a start. And he's been a big influence still.
Relegation battle, just extraordinary. So many twists and turns, Andy. We've had a load more of them this week, haven't we?
Yeah, we really have. And look, I guess we have to rule out the teams that are no longer involved. So after today, and again, we had all the games kicking off at the same time in the penultimate day, just for clarity. Espanyol are safe. Now, bear in mind, if you go back 4 days, they hadn't won since December, and now they've pulled out wins against Athletic and away against Osasuna, which is huge. Osasuna have been sucked to the bottom. Really difficult place to go and win at El Sadar. They did that today with a winning goal from Quique Garcia. They're safe. So are Sevilla, so are Alaves, not because of points, but because Girona, who are third bottom at the moment, who could draw level with them, they lost to Atletico Madrid today. They've got a worse head-to-head record. So that's how we know that those teams are safe. So I guess we should quickly go through the table and say who's safe and who's not going into the final day. Now, look, we've got Oviedo are bottom and relegated. Then you've got 19th, you've got Mallorca on 39, Girona 40, Elche 42, Osasuna 42, Levante 42. So you've still got places to be sorted out. Both Mallorca and Girona, as we were saying before, lost today. Elche won, which was really, really important for them. And Alaves got that winner, Oviedo, that saw them over the line. Of course, Tony Martinez scored the winner. So it has been an extraordinary day. And funnily enough, Rayo Vallecano, who made sure they were safe in midweek, and Valencia, who were 3-2 down with 10 men in the 89th minute at Real Sociedad and came back to win 4-3. They could still get into Europe next week.
That's amazing. Absolutely amazing. And I love the way that Real Sociedad, having won the Copa del Rey, have just completely headed straight for the beach. At one stage, they weren't safe from relegation. So that's what a cup win can do for you. My star of the week in La Liga is actually from the relegation battle. 20-year-old Carlos Espi. It's been absolutely brilliant for Levante recently. Got his 10th La Liga goal of the season in that win for Levante against Mallorca. First Levante player to reach 10 La Liga goals in a season since 2022. Andy, who's yours?
Would you say he's been so good he deserves a move to Ligue 1? Because that's what I'd say. Strasbourg, of course, linked with SB this week. I'm going to go for the big man. Antoine Griezmann, playing his last home game for Atletico Madrid today. He set up the winner for Ademola Lookman against Girona. And then afterwards, Diego Simeone, who's obviously been glazing him for months, said, look, you want to notice, Antoine, that these people have stayed here for half an hour to look at you because you're worth it. And they had all the big stars from yesteryear. Fernando Torres was there to greet him. Diego Godin, loads of them. They presented him with a shirt. They presented him with his membership card. So he's a member. He's a socio of the club now. Beautiful.
Fully deserved. Right, let's head over to golf's PGA Championship. talkSPORT's Rupert Bell has the latest.
It really is bubbling up into being an extraordinary climax to this US PGA, but Matty Schmidt is holding on to his lead. The German is at 6 under for the championship. He's played 8 holes. He's now playing the par 5 9th hole, which certainly could present a birdie opportunity to extend his lead. He's 2 under for his round. On 5 under par in the clubhouse, Justin Thomas. Cameron Smith could post a significant number if he can pick a birdie up over his final 3 holes, because he's currently at 5 under, 3 under for his round. Aaron Rai with a spectacular eagle at the 9th hole has put himself back into the contention. The Englishman now at 5 under through 10, 1 under for his round. Nick Taylor's in the mix. John Rahm, well, he's at 5 under as well, with a birdie at that 9th to be back at 1 under. For Rory McIlroy, after early success, it's proving to be a bit of a frustrating day as he sits at 4 under par. But as I say, so many players in with chances, we won't probably know. No one is being able to pull ahead of the field, as these greens are proving very difficult to read. But at the moment, Matty Smith holding on to the lead.
PGA Championship update on talkSPORT with Arnold Clark. Get the UK's best used car deals guaranteed.
Jamie Vardy's Cremonese have won at Udinese, but it looks like they're going to the final weekend of the Serie A season in the relegation zone, because Lecce look to have just scored a last-gasp winner against Sassuolo. Coming up after the break, we're going to talk Bundesliga.
We've got Jason Bourne sitting in front of the back three.
The ball goes over the top.
Yeah, but Jason Bourne's just going to eat everyone up.
You got Shaggy running in behind
No,
Jaws.
Shaggy's didn't make the team. You binned him.
Who's there?
Talkie, Jaws and Scooby-Doo.
Okay. All right, fine, okay.
All right, here we go, boys. Well done, everyone. This is a good team. Our Spy Sports Bar 11. In goal, we've got Octopussy.
Tell us why.
Well, it's just good arms. Good arms.
They're not...
back three.
Arms and legs.
We've got the back three, the walkie-talkie, Jaws, and Scooby-Doo. Solid back three.
I'm happy with that.
Up and down Scooby-Doo, walkie-talkie, good community, and Jaws, edit and kick it. Jason Bourne in midfield, eating everyone up with the binoculars for vision in the middle of the pitch. Inspector Gadget, player number 10. The main man, does everything. He's got the lot. Johnny English, out left. Can go missing. Can be a bit of a mess, but he always comes up with something. Right wing, the Maverick. Got the mojo, Austin Powers. And then up front, we've got the fake moustache, he's good in the box. And we've got James Bond, because he shoots to kill. That is
I think we pulled it together, you know.
Bar 11 on spying. All right, and we're going to carry this on, by the way, guys, because up next, it gets better. We are joined by former British military intelligence officer Philip Ingram to tell us where it all went wrong for Southampton and Spygate.
Get that winning feeling, courtesy of talkSPORT Win.
Now, do you fancy £25,000 in your hand, completely tax-free? At talkSPORT, our competitions just got a whole lot bigger, with even more prizes up for grabs to give you that winning feeling. To celebrate, we're giving you the chance to win big with 25 grand. But hurry, entries close tomorrow at 4 p.m. And here's what you need to do. For your chance to win, head to talksportwin.com or text WIN to 83338. Texts and online entries cost £2.50 plus your standard network rate. Or you can call 0343 418 7260. Entries must be in by tomorrow at 4 p.m. That's when you'll need to answer your phone if it rings. 18 plus, UK residents only. This is a network promotion. Full T's and C's at talksportwin.com. So for your chance to win, text WIN to 83338 now. Incredible drama in Italy because Jamie Vardy's Cremonese wrapped up their 1-0 win at Udinese. That would have been enough to take them out of the relegation zone, but Lecce scored deep into stoppage time to win their game against Sassuolo. So it means that it'll either be Lecce or Cremonese who go down, and Cremonese at the moment, behind the 8 ball, they are in the relegation zone. Elsewhere, it is Barcelona 2, Real Betis 1. Andy, we're going to talk Bundesliga. The headline for this is St. Pauli get thrown to the Wolves. We're going to talk about St. Pauli being relegated in a little while. But first, Harry Kane with yet another Bundesliga hat-trick as Bayern wrapped up the season in style.
Yeah, that's right. 5-1 against Köln. And what was unfortunate for Köln, just though they'd made themselves safe, is the fact that Bayern wanted to tune up a little bit for the DFB Pokal final, didn't they? Which they've got against Stuttgart last week. So that's why Kane started. Got 2 in the first 13 minutes, and it was all downhill from Köln from there, even though their departing superstar, who may end up in the Premier League, Syed Al-Mala, scored a brilliant solo goal. But really, it was interesting on a day of celebration and on a day when Manuel Neuer didn't want to be centre stage, because when he lifted the trophy at the end, he actually gave it to Leon Goretzka, who, of course, is leaving the club this summer. Again, he might end up in the Premier League, might end up going to Italy, closely linked with Milan, with who he's been having talks. But Neuer was still the centre of it, wasn't he, Kev?
Yeah, he was, because it was leaked by a journalist, Florian Plettenberg, that Neuer's name was on the 55-man initial list for Germany for the World Cup finals. And there was a further report suggesting that Neuer not only was going to go to the World Cup, he was going to be the number one. So then Julian Nagelsmann, the Germany coach, was on a prominent TV show on Saturday night, and he pretty much flat-batted every single question that he got and refused to say whether Neuer was even part of the squad, refused to say that he was going to be ahead of Oliver Baumann as Germany's number one for the tournament. And all it's done is create a huge amount of uncertainty. He said, I want to talk to the players first, and that's fine. But what I find really curious about this, Andy, is that Neuer's been playing this down for months, saying, I'm not interested, I'm not going to come back. There's clearly been some kind of rapprochement between him and Nagelsmann, because they had a big falling out when they were at Bayern over Toni Topalovic, who was the goalkeeping coach at the time at Bayern, getting the boot. And it was Nagelsmann who pushed that through. And Neuer said it was a complete betrayal. He was absolutely furious. So I still think there are politically a few hurdles to jump there, but it's all a bit of a mess, quite frankly. Let's look at
the worst part of this. I was going to say the worst part of this, Kev, is after Hoffenheim, who still had a chance to qualify for the Champions League on the final day, lost 4-0 at Borussia Mönchengladbach. Their goalkeeper, the experienced Oliver Baumann, who has been first choice, was asked about it, and he said, "Well, as far as I know, I'm still first choice." And
Oliver, my sweet summer child.
And really, that just shows how badly Nagelsmann has handled it. The other thing, of course, is the fact that Bayern announced this morning that Manuel Neuer, who signed a new contract this week to play next season, is going to have to rest for the time being because he's got a calf injury. And a calf injury is the whole reason that his future has been questioned, not because he's not good enough, but because he keeps getting these calf injuries. So is he even fit enough to do this?
Yeah.
Like, in every possible way, Germany and Nagelsmann have dropped the ball here.
No, and this keeps happening. You know, like Sideshow Bob keeps stepping on the rakes. That's basically Nagelsmann as Germany boss. He just keeps on doing this. The race for the Champions League was fascinating. Stuttgart got it, even though they actually blew a 2-0 lead and drew 2-2 at Eintracht Frankfurt. Eintracht Frankfurt have sacked their coach, Albert Riera. He is leaving the club. No surprises there. But the real drama here, even though Leverkusen missed out on the Champions League, we pretty much expected that, Andy, but the real drama here is at the bottom, isn't it? Because you had this situation where Heidenheim, Wolfsburg and St. Pauli were all on the same points going into the final day, and St. Pauli and Wolfsburg were playing each other.
Yeah, and if we had the feeling of this being a sort of relegation eliminator with St. Pauli starting bottom and Wolfsburg in third bottom, that quickly became the case, because Heidenheim who've come back brilliantly in recent weeks, because we were talking about them being definitely relegated a couple of months ago. Their coach, Frank Schmidt, was talking about them being definitely relegated about 4 months ago. And then they were 2 down by half time against Mainz, and it was going to be really hard for them to come back. And then at the point where St. Pauli equalise in the second half, where Aliou Cisse comes on a substitute and gets the leveller, you're like, right, if they score, they're staying up. But funnily enough, of all the bad things that have happened to Wolfsburg this season, they signed Christian Eriksen on a free at the start of the season. And really, it was thought, well, it's because Peter Christensen, the guy who's the sporting director at the time, of course, they've sacked 3 managers and 2 sporting directors this season. We thought, well, they don't need another midfield player. Why have they signed him? But funnily enough, when Max Arnold, who's like their captain and totem, has been injured in recent weeks and out for the season, he's been wearing the armband, Christian Eriksen. He really showed up yesterday. Now, he did miss a penalty, hit the crossbar, which is still probably shaking from how hard he hit it when they were 2-1 up. But he set up the first 2 goals. It was his shot that was saved for Pacinovic to put in the third goal as well. And really, if you sign a player like Eriksen because you're challenging for Europe, and you know they never looked anywhere near that, and yet he was still able to step up at a moment like this, at a ground like this, the Millantor, and be the man. I thought that was amazing.
Andy, who's your star of the week in the Bundesliga?
Well, you know what? If I hadn't just described him, I would have said Christian Eriksen. But in fact, I'm going to go for Haris Tabakovic, scorer, weirdly, for Borussia Mönchengladbach against Hoffenheim, stopping them getting in the Champions League, because, as you said, Stuttgart dropped points. So if Hoffenheim had won, they would have gone into 4th place. Not that Stuttgart didn't deserve it. Tabakovic, on loan from Hoffenheim, and scored the second goal to pretty much seal the deal.
It's going to be awkward in the summer when he goes back there. My star of the week is the Borussia Beckham, Julian Riasson. 15 Bundesliga assists he's got now. He set up the opening goal for Seru Guirassy at the weekend. It's the best set of assists for a Dortmund player in the Bundesliga since Jadon Sancho back in 2020. 15.
Hang on. I thought we were calling him the Dortmund DeMarco.
Oh, yes, exactly.
Come on.
I messed that one up, in fairness. First hour has flown by on Trans-Europe Express.
So what? We done. Listen, Middlesbrough went 1-0 up, Jamie.
He's right.
Right, they played brilliant. The first half, we scored an equaliser, right, and that done it. That put it to bed, because the second half we come out flying, mate. Middlesbrough had nothing. They were leggy. They were gone.
I think the rule is if you're going
Great
to
call.
don't get caught.
What? What's that?
The rule is we're going to cheat.
Is that your analysis of?
I think
Spygate.
I think well,
if you're going to cheat, don't get caught.
Well, I think if you cheat, rule number 1, don't get caught. Can't get caught cheating, mate. Can you?
You can't say that, mate.
Well, you can.
You can't.
I don't think it's cheating.
What do you mean?
Just don't get caught.
What do you mean? It's cheating.
It's not cheating.
It's a form of cheating.
It's not a form of cheating, but if you are cheating, don't get caught.
Is texting another woman cheating?
What are you saying to her?
Well,
you tell me what I'm saying, I'll tell you it's cheating.
We're just having a little chat. We're having a,
No, it's not cheating.
We're having a chat. You're a bit flirty.
Right, okay, what am I saying? You give me the context of the text, and I'll tell you it's cheating.
Say, I see you at the bar the other day. I got your number, and I thought I'd give you a message. I thought you look really pretty.
That's not cheating in my book.
You're a disgrace. You're a disgrace.
Oh, that's not cheating, is it?
What do you mean? It's a form of cheating.
It's not.
It is.
No, it's not. It's fine.
You can't get away with that.
No, I think you wouldn't.
Can't get away
but here's the thing. I ain't got caught. Delete the text. Delete the text.
Would you give up the chance to play for your country to become a global star of your sport and earn big money doing it? Well, that's the choice facing rugby players right now because of the proposed new R360 League. Led by 2003 World Cup winner Mike Tindall, it's already being backed by major investors. Its goal? Turn rugby union into franchises, not clubs, add some serious cash and a bit of razzmatazz. Or in their words, make the game more watchable, accessible and entertaining, especially for younger audiences. But there's been a huge pushback, a massive no way from the current game. So what exactly is R360 and why is it controversial? Rugby union is facing challenges on a domestic level right now. There's huge financial instability across even top-tier clubs. The English game has seen leading clubs like Wasps, London Irish and Worcester go out of business in the top flight. The Welsh provincial game is in total disarray too. R360 says they would remove what are easily some clubs' biggest expenses, i.e. the big stars, and therefore make more of them profitable. So the plan is to inject a new lease of life into the sport. But how exactly? Top stars of the men and women's game playing for a franchise-based league with fixtures in cities like London, Miami, Tokyo and Lisbon. Each city would host a tournament featuring all the franchises during a short 3-month season. And though no players have officially confirmed, reports suggest around 200 have signed pre-contracts, some worth up to 750 grand. And if that's the pre-contract, you can imagine where the full wages will get to. Problem is, the rest of rugby says no. In fact, no way. The national unions from England, Scotland, Ireland, France, Italy, South Africa, New Zealand and Australia have declared any player joining R360 will be banned from test selection. World Rugby's also not approved the league. Many fear it echoes football's failed European Super League, a top-down, money-driven idea that could damage the sport's traditions. So is it dead already? Well, rugby union is at a crossroads. Some may be against it, but we know others are being swayed by the cash. So will everything work itself out? Or after the European Super League and Live Golf, have we got sport's next big scandal on our hands?
Express, Kevin Hatchard sitting in for Danny tonight alongside Andy Brassell for this one. Plenty still to come. We're going to take a look at Serie A and Liga. We're going to look ahead as well to the World Cup. We'll have a team focus on France. And at the end of the hour, we're going to take a look ahead to that fascinating Europa League final between Aston Villa and Freiburg. It's all coming up on Trans Europe Express. Robert Lewandowski is just saying farewell to the Barcelona fans. It is his final home game as a Barcelona player. They are 3-1 up now against Betis. Andy, we're going to talk Serie A. The headline for this: Spalletti slides out of the top four. That race for the Champions League, absolutely fascinating at the moment. And Juventus, the big losers this weekend.
Yeah, and you thought if anyone was going to have a little accident, it was going to be Milan, didn't you? Because they were horribly out of form, going away to Genoa, who were safe, of course, and Daniele De Rossi, which meant it's never going to be easy because there's no let-up from him. But whereas Milan got it done, Juventus, who it felt like had a fairly easy game against Fiorentina, who had guaranteed safety, just made a real mess of things, didn't they? What I thought was interesting, a couple of things. Firstly, and something that you wanted to point out as a member of the Goalkeepers Union, bad goalkeeping by Di Gregorio for the opener by Scherendorf, as opposed to David De Gea, who was immaculate at the other end, by the way. The other thing I wanted to point out, and this has been a theme of Juventus' season, the fact that they've had all these attacking options, no one has managed to integrate them, and they were left with Jonathan David and Lois Openda, who we both know can score a goal, on the bench, and they didn't come on when they were chasing the game. Please explain that to me.
It's extraordinary because they have blown. If you think of the wages, they must have blown, because obviously David was a free transfer. Openda's not cheap, I'm sure, in terms of the wages. They haven't performed by and large, and they have had this bizarre situation where for most of the campaign we were told that Dusan Vlahovic was going to go at the end of the season because they've been desperate to shift his wages off the wage bill for ages, and then talk that he's going to stay. So they've got themselves into a right old mess. Beaten at home as well, not only by any old team, Fiorentina. I mean, Juve and Fiorentina hate each other, don't they, really? Which goes back to the Roberto Baggio days.
Yes, before.
Well, before, yeah, but it was enhanced by that, wasn't it? And then, so you got the situation where Juventus lose, Milan win, and Roma, who've been going great guns, Andy, massive derby success for them against Lazio.
Yeah, and look, if Gianpiero Gasperini wanted to have a little dance on the pitch, which was possibly slightly undignified for a man of his age, I think he was entitled to it after this game, because, of course, a real celebratory moment for Roma, not just beating Lazio for the second time this season, while Lazio are in disarray as a club. They didn't fill the away end. They only had 1,000 fans there, and there were loads of empty seats in the bit that would be reserved for Lazio fans, whereas the rest of the stadium was packed. But Roma didn't even play well in the first half, and Lazio was starting to have the better chances, didn't have the quality to take them, and then Gianluca Mancini heads in a corner, runs all the way to the other end of the ground to celebrate it with the home fans in the Curva Nord, and then he does the same thing in the second half after there's been a bit of a scrap and two players are sent off, one from either side, Wesley and Rovella. And Mancini heads in another corner. There could have been more at the end. But really, everything has come up Gasperini recently. You know, you kind of thought going back a couple of weeks, and even last week, I thought Roma could win out and they still won't make the Champions League because Juventus and Milan will get it done. But they got it tight, and when they got an opportunity, they've taken it. They need to go to Verona next week, who've been relegated for absolutely ages, and win there to make sure of it. But a return to the Champions League for the first time since 2019 would be absolutely massive for Roma, both in terms of finance and in terms of prestige. You know, it could be the Friedkins era really starts here.
Como have kept themselves in the mix, haven't they, in terms of that final Champions League spot. So you've got Milan third on 70, Roma fourth on 70, Como fifth on 68, Juventus sixth on 68. Napoli have wrapped up a place, Andy, in the Champions League for next season. They were pretty comfortable winners this weekend, but we don't know if Antonio Conte is going to be in charge if they start a Champions League campaign next season.
It seemed like he was doing a goodbye in the press conference afterwards. He said, I consider myself very lucky to have been given this opportunity. It's like, no, you meant to do this next week. Is he even going to turn up to the final game? I suppose. Look, I guess it feels like he'd had the speech written because they should have clinched it on Monday when they were at home against Bologna. They lost 3-2 right at the end, which was unbelievably careless. They come back from 2-0 down, and so they didn't get it over the line. But they were always going to do that against Pisa, who again have been relegated for a while. Scott McTominay scoring the opener, of course. Kevin De Bruyne coming on and having a role in the final goal scored by Rasmus Højlund, who, as you have pointed out, is staying there for the long haul now.
Yeah, so them qualifying for the Champions League has triggered this permanent move. And I think this will work out for everybody because he's had game time. Serie A clearly suits him. Manchester United will get the money from that so they can retool the team as they see fit under Michael Carrick. And I guess it's just one of those examples again, Andy, isn't it, of a young player who looked really promising in one league. He moves to a massive club that's in flux, doesn't get the patience, doesn't get the time, and it doesn't quite happen for them. And that's okay, because it's not going to work for you everywhere. It's not going to work for you in every league. And sometimes if there's a league that suits you and you can score goals and the fans love you, that's great, isn't it?
I mean, is there a better guarantee of success than going from Manchester United to Serie A? I don't think there is there?
Yeah, that's true. Well, when you mentioned McTominay, absolutely.
Ultimately, you're going to score more goals, you're going to win more trophies, and you're going to become more handsome. You know, that is the trio of things that's guaranteed to happen.
Yes, absence makes the face grow fonder, I suppose, something along those lines. Andy, who's your star of the week in Serie A?
Oh, we're going to go from one Scot to another. I'm going to go for Kieran Bowie because, of course, as we said, Verona have been relegated for a while. They still went and got a draw at San Siro against the champions Inter today. And it was thanks to a very nice finish from the former Hibs striker. Of course, there's the fact that Tommy Conway has been injured for Scotland, unfortunately for him, the Middlesbrough striker. Steve Clarke announcing his squad in a couple of days. Bowie has scored away to get Verona points since they've been relegated, admittedly, at both Juventus and Inter. Just saying.
Yeah, not a bad run, is it? Just a little tap on the shoulder ahead of that big tournament in the summer. My star of the week, Jamie Vardy, scored an early winner for Cremonese against Udinese. It looked as though that was going to be enough to take Cremonese out of the drop zone, but a cruel twist of fate for them because Lecce then got a late winner, 95th minute, against Sassuolo. And that means that Lecce are a point ahead of Cremonese going into that final round of matches. Cremonese just below the safety line, Lecce just above it. Okay, let's head to the golf now. Let's get the latest from the PGA Championship with talkSPORT's Rupert Bell.
Well, it really is a moment of destiny, potentially, for Aaron Rai, the man from Wolverhampton, because he is currently leading at 6 under, a wonderful eagle at the 9th, and then he backed it up with a birdie at the 11th, and he's now playing the 13th at 6 under par. And Rory McIlroy, though, he, on the other hand, has now slipped back to 3 under and 3 back with a bogey at the 13th. So his challenge may be done because it's proving very difficult to get birdies over the final stretch at the US PGA. But as I say, Aaron Rai on course, leading by 1 from the clubhouse leader, Justin Thomas. John Rahm, though, is very much in the mix at 5 under, and as is the German Matti Schmidt. Cameron Smith's challenge has just hit the buffers with a bogey at 17 to slip back to 4 under. Nick Taylor's on that mark, and overnight leader Alex Smalley, after slipping back to 3 under, has just picked up a birdie to get back to 4 under. But at the moment, Aaron Rai, the man from Wolverhampton, is in the lead at the US PGA with 6 holes to play.
PGA Championship update on talkSPORT with Arnold Clark. Get the UK's best used car deals guaranteed.
And we should just say as well, on the subject of Italian football, congratulations to Inter, because they wrapped up the League and Cup double, because they were able to beat Lazio in the final of the Coppa Italia. So Christian Chivu, what an incredible first season he's had as coach, has won the league and has won the cup as well. Coming up after the break here on Trans Europe Express, we're going to take a look at Liga.
As we alluded to yesterday, Southampton are likely to face a sporting sanction if they're found guilty of spying charges. As a result, they could end up being thrown out of the playoff final to be replaced in that final by Middlesbrough instead, the team that they put out last night at the semi-final second leg stage. We said we'd look into this more thoroughly from a financial, legal expert point of view, and the very man who fits that bill is sitting to my right. Stefan Borsten joins us live in studio. And Stefan, good morning to you.
Hi.
We'll get into how this may or may not play out in the courts. Is there a precedent, Stefan, for chucking a team out of the playoffs?
Well, it happened to Swindon, but it was different. Well, not in terms of the playoffs, but in terms of sort of annulling the promotion. But it was a different situation. I mean, there's no situation where you've had it all come to a head within this small window around the playoffs. In terms of spying / espionage, there's really very few cases anywhere in football in respect of this. So you've got the Leeds situation that we know about, where it was systematic. They ended up with a £200,000 fine. And effectively, the other part of the sanction was to vote in favour of the rule that then came in. This rule that we're now talking about in terms of the 72-hour rule. That was part of the agreement on that. So that brought the rule in. The only other case is actually from the from the Olympics with Canada's women's team, and FIFA in 2024 docked them 6 points.
With Kevin Hatchard and Andy Brassell. We're going to switch our attention to Ligue 1. And Andy, the headline for this, Paris and their poultry party, because even though PSG wrapped up another Liga title success, no big surprises there, it wasn't this weekend the most spectacular of title celebrations.
No, it wasn't, for a number of reasons, really. So it was unclear leading up to the game how they were going to celebrate their winning their title, which of course they clinched by winning 2-0 at Lens in the week. They were almost guaranteed of it anyway, barring a mathematical miracle. But Lens played really well in that game in the week, but PSG picked them off on the break, 1-2-0. The second goal on the counter-attack by Ibrahim Mbappe was exceptional.
Yeah.
Anyway, so they didn't get the sign-off to celebrate it at the Parc des Princes. Now, that might have worked because they were playing their final game of the season tonight at Paris FC, who play in the Stade Jean-Bouin, who, as we've discussed before, is literally 60 yards away. Like when you're having a hot dog in the stand at PSG, you can almost reach over and touch it. And in fact, the PSG club shop is in the Stade Jean-Bouin. It's remarkable, really. So anyway, there was this idea. Yeah. So there was this idea that they could say, "Oh, thanks for the game. We're just going to chip off across the road and have a party in the Parc des Princes." But the mairie, the council said, no, that's not happening. And PFC said, well, look, we've got our own things to celebrate. We stayed up and we want to say goodbye to the players that are leaving and all those sort of things. So what they settled for is having, like when someone did something for charity and handed over a cardboard check in the 1980s, a big cardboard check. It was a little
bit
bit
like
like that.
telethon or something like that.
It was a little bit like that as they set up this sort of cardboard facade and mini stage in front of the away end of the Jean-Bouin to receive the trophy an hour before kickoff tonight. Whilst, of course, the president of the LFP, the Ligue, Vincent Lebrun, former Marseille president, so he got loads of abuse from the PSG fans while they were handing it over.
Standard.
It all looked a bit weird and Tim Pot. Bradley Barcola did give them the lead. By the way, Arsenal fans, Ousmane Dembélé was taken off in the early stages after 27 minutes in that game. It appears to have been precautionary, our man Lee Davey tells us, rather than an injury that might keep him out the final, though we'll wait and see. But a couple of goals from Alimami Gori meant that PSG ended the season on a defeat.
Just on PSG ahead of that Champions League final against Arsenal, it's kind of a tricky situation for them, isn't it, really? Because we knew they were going to win Liga. I know Lens have kept them honest, and Luis Enrique did say, actually, it's the most satisfying Liga and title win that they've had because of Lens's efforts and because of the job that Pierre Sage has done. But they've not got the situation Arsenal have, which is Arsenal over the next few days are going to have to really fight for the Premier League title. Do you see it as a good thing or a bad thing that PSG can effectively down tools and kind of cruise their way into the final with a long run-up?
I think a bit of R&R is really important for them because, there's been a lot of talk, and we've discussed it here on TE, that PSG have sort of rotated their players and their big stars have been left out of a lot of league games. People are looking particularly at Ousmane Dembélé, for example. They've been injured all the time because they've been in the red zone for such a long period. They played almost every game that you could have played in the last 2 years with very little rest. I would say a bit of rest is beneficial. But although, you could argue that when you stop at this point in the season, maybe it's difficult to restart again. They played a surprisingly strong team, I think, in the midweek game against Lens. And again tonight, I think it's fair to say, I mean, if there is something wrong with Dembélé ahead of the Champions League final, people will look back, as of course it's still 2 weeks away, the wisdom of Luis Enrique starting him here. But it's a very, very difficult balance, as you say, between keeping the players sharp and making sure they get a bit of a breather as well. I don't think there is a right answer.
Should you say Matvei Safonov, who I've been quite critical of at times, the PSG goalkeeper was exceptional against Lens in midweek, so that's not a good sign for Arsenal fans necessarily. This race for the Champions League, Andy, all over the shop. Lille were involved, Lyon were involved as well. Rennes potentially could have got in, and it was a bit of a mess for all of them.
Yeah, so Lille started in third, but they did have quite a difficult game in that they were hosting Auxerre, who needed to win to stay out of the playoff places. In the end, a draw would have done them because Nice didn't beat Metz, the bottom and relegated team.
Go straight down.
Pretty unforgivable, really, isn't it?
Automatic disbanding of the club.
Yeah, a couple of goals for Lassine Sinayoko in that, who's just been brilliant for Auxerre this season. And that meant Lyon had a chance to steal. Or they would have done if they hadn't have lost 4-0 at home to Lens. Look, we know what a good side Lens were, but Lyon were really overcome by the pressure. Lens rotated a bit with the cup final in mind. Of course, they've got the opportunity to win the Coupe de France for the first time ever next week against Nice. Bizarrely, the team that came second in the league, playing the team that have to play the relegation playoff now against Saint-Etienne, which is remarkable. Two huge names in French football playing for one place in Ligue next season, which will be really, really interesting to see. It's the second successive season that one of the cup finalists has also been involved in the relegation playoff. Didn't go that well for Reims last season, by the way, is worth pointing out. They haven't come anywhere near promotion. We'll be talking about some of the promoted clubs in Europe later on. So there was a chance for Rennes to steal then, but they were 2-0 down in 10 minutes against Marseille. Marseille, who had to beat them to get themselves or guarantee themselves a place in the Europa League, and they managed to do that as well. So I guess a little bit of a consolation for Marseille. It'll be frustrating for them knowing they missed out on the Champions League qualifiers, because that's what Lyon have to go into now in fourth place. It's kind of uncertain summer for them because, of course, as we said, the top three qualify automatically for the Champions League. So that's PSG, Lille and Lens, the two local rivals, the two northern French clubs there. And then Lyon have to go in at the third qualifying round, which normally doesn't go that well for French teams. I mean, look, Paulo Fonseca's just been on the pitch at Lyon, and they've been having a bit of a celebration for the season. A sort of slightly strange celebration for the season because, of course, they've just lost their last two games and blown their chance of finishing third. Yeah. But if you'd have said at the start of the season that Lyon are going to finish in the top four, people would have looked at you like you were mad. You know, they had no money. They had no centre forward. They'd only just managed to stay in Liga after that administrative relegation. So it's really such an unusual season.
Look what happens when John Textor steps away. I mean, just draw that, that parallel. Thought that was
as if by magic.
Yeah, incredible how that works out. I do want to ask you actually about Pierre Sage, because I know you're a big fan. He did great work at Lyon. He's ended up going to Lens against all the odds because they were effectively kind of trying to knock a few numbers off the budget. They were trying to, downsize in a way. And he's just produced the most extraordinary season. He's been linked with Crystal Palace. He's, rumoured to be one of the names under consideration to replace Oliver Glasner. Just in case that comes to pass, if it did happen, what would Palace fans be getting?
A really thorough, really emotionally intelligent coach. I thought it was really interesting because, of course, he came back to Lyon tonight knowing that his team weren't going to win the league despite that spectacular season, knowing that it was big for Lyon. And Lyon is his club, really. Him and his assistant, Jamal Aloui, who's been brilliant for him, by the way. And it was an emotional night as well because Lyon paid tribute to Fleury Dinalo, who's their top scorer of all time, who passed away in the week. And, he showed all the class he would. And then he showed, against Paulo Fonseca, the bloke who he was sacked for, that he's probably a better coach than him because his team, which don't have the same weapons as Lyon, which don't have the same depth as Lyon, absolutely played them off the park. They were fantastic. They're physically strong. They're organised. Every player knows their job. They're fantastic on the counter attack. They can force the game with possession as well. And we've seen him in so many different situations. They're leading from the front in a challenging team, getting away from relegation as well as he had to at the start. He took over Lyon when they had 7 points in the first 14 games. No team had ever escaped relegation from that point. So I think you're looking at a coach who could really, really go a long way if he wanted to.
My star of the week in Liga is Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, who we talked about last week because when they were in Retiro, they were confined to the training camp. He decided he was bored and led a little escapade with fire extinguisher in hand and sprayed the fire extinguisher all around and got in a fair degree of trouble, but bounced back, scored in Marseille's 3-1 win over Rennes, which ended Rennes' Champions League hopes. Dare we say extinguished Rennes' Champions League hopes? I'm not claiming that one. That's an Andy Brassell special.
Apologies.
I quite liked it, to be honest. Andy, who's your star of the week?
Yeah, I'm not really sorry. It's going to be Sebastian Nanasi, the Swedish midfielder for Strasbourg, who's had quite a frustrating season on the periphery of things. But Gary O'Neill's side, in one of the games that could have been a playoff for Europe, but wasn't in the end, they were 4-1 down at home to Monaco this evening. They came back and won 5-4, which is a remarkable way to end a nearly but not quite season. And Nanasi got 2 of the goals.
We've started to look ahead to the World Cup here on Trans-Europe Express. That's exactly what we'll be doing after the break. The French squad has recently been announced, and we'll be analysing that for you right here on Trans-Europe Express.
You've got Madonna, Shakira and BTS are going to headline the halftime show at this summer's World Cup final on July the 19th. The halftime show during last summer's Club World Cup in the United States between Chelsea and Paris Saint-Germain lasted more than 24 minutes. This is going to be the first time that there has been a halftime show at a World Cup final. I've got a terrible feeling that you're going to tell me you have no problem with this.
No, I haven't got an issue with it.
Oh, God.
But then I'm used to... Listen, I love American sports. People know that. I love American sports. I love the Super Bowl halftime show. Of course, it's not going to be for everyone, and I get that. I've got no issue with that at all. But what they're going to have to do is make sure that they've got plenty of bikes in the dressing rooms, the warm-up areas to keep the legs moving, because I've been there half-time, 24 minutes, that is long. Especially when the intensity of the game, then you go in and you cool down a little bit, and then you talk about 25 minutes before you get yourself back out there. They have to keep
Aaron, you know when you say that you love American sports and you therefore don't mind the intrusion of a halftime show, I kind of get it. I went to a Super Bowl. Snoop Dogg was there.
That was unbelievable, that one.
Yeah, and that was great because it was a Super Bowl. But I wouldn't necessarily want that at an FA Cup final. I think when you buy into the American experience, you get the American experience. Why are we getting the American experience in a game that doesn't necessarily need one?
Probably because it's in America. I think if it was elsewhere, it probably wouldn't be. That wouldn't be the case because it's in America.
Although we started to get it in Champions League finals, haven't we? We've had Dua Lipa at a Champions League final.
Yeah, you know what? I get it. It's not for everyone, and I've got no argument. If people come on here and say, "Nah, it's rubbish. I hate it." Then listen. You're going to get no argument from me. I just quite like it. But then also as well, it depends on the act. Like, listen, Shakira. I know a couple of her songs. Madonna. I'm not a fan of Madonna. I know she's a legend, but that's not my cup of tea.
Do you fancy £25,000 in your hand, completely tax-free? Well, at talkSPORT, our competition's just got a whole lot bigger, with even more prizes up for grabs to give you that winning feeling. Head to talksportwin.com to enter, and for full T's and C's, hurry though, entries close tomorrow at 4 p.m. Now, we are starting to look ahead to the World Cup. Of course, we're going to be bringing you so much action across the tournament on the talkSPORT network. Lots of commentaries coming your way. And we're going to take a look at France and Andy Didier Deschamps, who, of course, is taking France to his final tournament as the boss of Les Bleus. He's named a really interesting squad. I think it's going to raise a few eyebrows, the players he's left out. We'll talk about a couple of interesting players that he's included in a moment. But you look at Rondal Colomouani, who, of course, nearly won the World Cup final in Qatar, had that volley that was saved by Emi Martinez. You look at Corentin Tolisso, okay, that's not so much of a surprise, although I think he's had a really good season for Lyon. I think he thinks he's had a really good season for Lyon as well. But Eduardo Camavinga's the one that will raise a few eyebrows, isn't it? The fact that he's been left out entirely.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say, but it's also clear his confidence has fallen through the floor in recent weeks and months. So, look, I think what's interesting is the reaction in France, I think, because there are some big names that have been left out, as you say. You know, not only did Rondal Colomouani almost win the World Cup in 2022 against Emi Martinez, he was the rare scorer of a goal in open play during Euro 2024 when nothing was going right. So I think the interesting thing is in France, there's been a pretty much unanimous understanding of who Didier Deschamps has picked. There's been very little pushback against it. Now, of course, there are Tolisso loyalists out there who will say that, you know, this is a guy who is a born leader, who was part of the 2018 World Cup squad, that he's got himself back to that sort of form and better, actually. Statistically, it's his best season ever. And he's scored a ton of goals in this calendar year as well. But then again, you look down the midfielders who they actually have picked. Kanté, Manu Kone, absolutely undroppable.
Yeah.
Rabiot, Aurélien Tchouameni, and Warren Zaire-Emery, who's had a brilliant season. Like, who are you dropping out of that?
That's a five, isn't it?
There's just no argument, really, is there? I guess you could say maybe you take one less forward, but you know what? I think you'd rather have like forwards who can change a game rather than midfielders who can come on and maybe get you a goal.
A couple of really nice Crystal Palace stories. Jean-Philippe Mateta, that's an incredible turnaround when you think that move to Milan fell through in January. He wasn't very popular at Palace at the time, but obviously he had that knee injuries, turned it round, scored some really important goals for them. They're obviously in the Conference League final now. And Maxence Lacroix as well, because this is a guy who repeatedly Oliver Glasner has got the best out of. At Wolfsburg, he got the best out of him when they qualified for the Champions League against the odds. We talked earlier about the fact they've only just avoided automatic relegation in the Bundesliga. When Oliver Glasner was there, they were qualifying for the Champions League. So it just shows the success of Palace, the influence of Glasner, that both Mateta and Lacroix are part of this squad.
And I think it goes to show you that nothing succeeds like success in the Premier League as well, really. I don't know about the future for Lacroix, but certainly for Mateta, now he's proved his fitness, he'll get his good move this summer, presumably with a Conference League winners' medal, although Rayo Vallecano might have something to say about that as well. They've had an extraordinary season. But I think you look at that and you talked about the Palace connection. I thought you were going to say Michael Elise, because I still think if there's a player who can make this France team World Cup winners, it's Elise. He's the player they didn't have in 2022 or 2024, that extra little bit of craft and explosiveness.
Well, we didn't actually get the chance to mention in the Bundesliga section that it'll surprise a few people that Harry Kane didn't get the Bundesliga Player of the Season award. Elise got it. And I'd agree with that because...
Same.
I get it with the numbers, and Kane is phenomenal, don't get me wrong. He's absolutely phenomenal. But I just think, if you said to me, who's the player that Bayern cannot afford to not have in that team in a big game that could just about get by without Kane? I don't think they can get by without Elise. I think he brings so much to that team with and without the ball. He's been lights out all season.
Yeah, and I think it's quite indicative if you go to the semi-final of the Champions League, where PSG played a really great game, I thought, against Bayern in the second leg. What was their focus? Blocking Elise out of the game.
Yeah.
And I think that says it all, really. It's the ultimate mark of respect, and that PSG did it very, very well indeed. Of course, Matvei Safonov was asked about that in the week. Were you deliberately kicking the ball out of play to create an overload on Elise? And he said, well, I could tell you, but etc. etc. But yeah, clearly he wanted to cover for his bad kicking as well.
Well, yeah, that too.
It was a plan. It was a plan, and it's a plan that I guess has confused people a little bit. Like some people are still confused by Vitinha still putting the ball out high up the pitch when
I'm really enjoying that.
They're taking kickoff as well. But look, I think player for player, this France squad is as good as it gets at the World Cup. And what I like is I think you can see international coaches, and particularly ones who've been in the job a long time, like Didier Deschamps, they have a tendency to be conservative and not really touched by club form. Now, of course, he's had to make some choices like Chevalier because he's been injured, of course, and Robin Rieser has come in, which I think is a really positive thing for the future of France, because I think you look at those three goalkeepers and the mix of personalities and experience. That's always what Deschamps is looking for. He's looking for the people who are not going to kick off if they're not getting picked. I think that's a huge part of it as well. And if you look at his successful squads, the players who haven't played are as important as the players who have on many occasions. I think they need to be good enough to keep the starters sharp, but they also need to not have a massive sulk. Of course, you might remember back in the day that Vikas Doroso made that film Substitute about how miserable he was when he wasn't playing in the 2006 World Cup. And it's almost become like a cautionary tale. Yeah. So I think that's really important as well. But like I said, you find very few people who are arguing. I know all these people are making lists of these are the players France could have picked who got left out. But really, there's difference between could have picked and should have picked, I think. And everyone feels fairly settled and happy with it. And really, when I look at this like a year ago, I would have said if France are not going to win this cup, it will probably be Didier Deschamps and his choices that influences that, despite the fact that, he's had such a long spell and, globally pretty successful spell in charge. I still think like one major trophy is like not an amazing return for the players.
No, it's not enough. He's been in the ballpark, hasn't he? And they were obviously very close to winning another one.
But I think it looks totally different if he wins this World Cup.
Yeah,
totally
I think he does. And part of me really, obviously, I would like England to win, obviously, but if England can't win it, I wouldn't mind France winning it. I think they've got a lot of tremendous players, and I like a lot of what Deschamps has done, and I think actually it would put a much glossier sheen, I think, on his tenure if he was able to win that second World Cup. So it's going to be fascinating to see how Les Bleus get on at the World Cup. Let's switch our attention to golf, though. We'll head over to the PGA Championship. talkSPORT's Rupert Bell has the latest.
Well, it's an extraordinary few holes for Aaron Rai, because he's put himself firmly in control of becoming the first Englishman to win the US PGA since 1919, when Jim Barnes did it, when it was still a match play event. Because a fabulous up and down at the 13th, the short par 4, he's moved to 7 under par. He's just parred the par 3 14th. He's now on the 15th, and he's found the fairway. And he sits 2 shots clear of the chasing pack. Justin Thomas in the clubhouse with a 5 under round to finish at 5 under. John Rahm is playing the 14th at 5 under, 1 under for his round. And the German Matti Schmidt is also on that mark. Rory McIlroy has just given himself an outside chance with a birdie to get back to 4 under, 1 under for his round. But I have to say, you've got to be impressed with the way Aaron Rai is going about his business. He's won on the DP World Tour some big events, but this is the biggest moment of his life for the 31-year-old for Wolverhampton. Can he remain calm over the final few holes and, as I say, become the first Englishman since 1919 to lift the Wanamaker Trophy?
PGA Championship update on talkSPORT with Arnold Clark. Get the UK's best used car deals guaranteed.
Coming up after the break, we're going to look ahead to the Europa League final as Aston Villa go for European glory against Freiburg.
Another developing story this morning coming out of Manchester United. Manchester United have reportedly reached out to other potential candidates, but wish to speak to Michael Carrick first. What do you read into that? Is the significant fact of that Carrick gets first dibs in speaking to those who will make the ultimate decision?
Well,
in other words, he's leading the way.
I find it strange how these things come out. Like, who is it leaking the fact that United have spoken or speaking to other candidates before they speak to Michael? I mean, it's bizarre, especially when you're talking about one of the biggest clubs in the world. Can they not do business? Can they not keep their own counsel? I find that a bit bizarre, but he's done really well. And, with the position they were in to where he's got them, you could argue he deserves another go at it and bring some players in the summer. And I wouldn't say that's a huge risk. The progression they've made under him, I'd give him another go. Yeah.
Yeah. Significant, Simon, that they want to speak to Carrick first.
Yeah, again, I don't know who's briefing in and whether it's coming from Carrick's side or whether it's coming from Man United's side as to the briefing in as to why Man United need. You can employ an England manager without anyone knowing about it, but they can't seemingly have a conversation amongst themselves without broadcasting it to the media. I don't understand why that is the case. I still think it's fraught with lots of questions that need to be asked and answered about the position of someone that becomes in moments of adversity. We've seen no moments of adversity for Carrick, really. He's done the job, so it makes it a conundrum. Every kick of the Europa League final live from Istanbul on Wednesday. It's Aston Villa against Freiburg. Adrian Durham will be your presenter for that one. Jim Proudfoot, your commentator, alongside the former Aston Villa captain Andy Townsend. So every kick coming your way on Wednesday of Aston Villa against Freiburg live on talkSPORT. Andy, you're going to be there in Istanbul, and this is a really intriguing final, I think, because I think Villa, it's fair to say, are firm favourites. They are the Premier League team. They have a much more expensively assembled squad than Freiburg, there's no doubt. They also have in Unai Emery, a man who has a truly extraordinary pedigree in this competition.
Yeah, and I think what's been really impressive, and particularly when you look at the Liverpool game on Friday night, that they didn't really switch off. So there've been some difficult performances, and I know everyone really focused on the game against Tottenham, for example. But honestly, I think on the whole, they've avoided what happened, and we talked about it before when Sevilla won the Europa League in 2016, going back 10 years, that their form completely fell away in La Liga towards the end of that season as everything was concentrated on the Europa League. And you kind of wondered if that would happen for Villa this time. And I think particularly when you could argue their squad's not quite as good this year. You know, they haven't been able to, you know, they were in a situation where they were able to either start or bring on Rashford and Asensio like last season. They didn't have winter signings like that this year. They had like Leon Bailey coming back from Roma, and with the best will in the world, he was sent back because Roma didn't want him.
Well, that swap hasn't worked, has it? Because Marlon's gone to Roma and been lights out ever since he arrived, scoring goals left, right and centre, and Leon Bailey's come back and hasn't had anywhere near the same effect.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So, you know, I don't think from a Villa perspective you trust anyone more than Unai Emery in a situation like this. But, you know, Kev, we talked about how Villa did so well to clinch that Champions League place on Friday night against Liverpool. But I think we also have to say Freiburg, with a smaller squad and with lesser resources, they had something to get done this weekend because they knew that if they could win against RB Leipzig, who'd already qualified for the Champions League but still represent a formidable opponent, if they beat them, that they would have their sort of backup plan, their safety net, because now, having beaten Leipzig in a very impressive performance, 4-1 yesterday, they're guaranteed at least Conference League next season, and they can go into this game knowing that they get back into Europe either way.
I was so impressed. Honestly, I really was, because they've had to fight on several fronts. It's not an easy thing to do in general. Freiburg have gotten used to it in the last few years because they have been regularly qualifying for European tournaments. But you've got to bear in mind that a few years ago, the main priority every single year for Freiburg was get enough points on the board to stay in the division. And there was a stage where they went down to Bundesliga 2 under their inspirational coach Christian Streich, who was there for decades, there for a very long time, and he stayed and he managed to get them back up at the first attempt. But this was a club that by and large was fully focused on just staying in the league. And then things started to happen, and they got to the cup final and they lost to Leipzig on penalties, and I think that still hurts them now because they should have won the final. They were against 10 men and they should have won that final before the penalties even came along, but they didn't quite manage to do that. And they've regularly qualified for Europe. They've flirted a couple of times with Champions League qualification through the league. And then when Streich stepped down a couple of seasons ago, you wondered how it was going to go, because you're talking about Arsene Wenger, Fergie vibes. You're talking about a guy that was Freiburg. I mean, everything the club was about.
To follow him's almost impossible.
Yeah.
And really, it was a little bit like Manchester United flipping from Sir Alex Ferguson to David Moyes, because he like anointed his own successor, really, didn't he?
Yeah, except this one worked. And Julian Schuster, who's now in charge, he was his captain as a player. He was then his assistant coach. He was the natural choice. But I remember when he got the gig, we were kind of looking at each other thinking, okay, well, in theory, this makes a lot of sense. There was no guarantee. Absolutely no guarantee that he was going to be able to pull this off. But what he's been able to do, which I think is really impressive, he's been able to keep the older guys on side. So guys like Lukas Höhler, Matthias Ginter, Nicolas Höfler, Christian Gunther, guys who've been around for years at that football club. Vincenzo Grifo is another one, their record scorer. Hundreds of games for the club. And he's brought through young guys as well. So the goalkeeper, Noah Atubolu, you've also got Johan Manzambi, who Premier League clubs, I'm convinced, are looking at. There must be.
What a player.
He's a phenomenal player. Igor Matanovic, who came in, that raised a few eyebrows in the summer. He's done brilliantly. Didn't really happen for him at Frankfurt, but he's done brilliantly this season. So he's managed to mix the old and the new phenomenally well. I think they're aggressive. I think they're a team that has great energy, but they have quality too. They'll know they're not the favourites. They won't care.
Yeah, and the experience is a massive part of it, I think, Kev. Guys like Grifo, guys like even Matthias Ginter. You look at the goal that he scored yesterday. You know, these guys who've played for big clubs and know how to create something out of nothing. Like Grifo's set pieces are really important. I think it's really notable, actually, that you look at Lucas Hurlo, who gets through loads of work up front, and Grifo, who could make things happen from dead balls, only came on for the last half hour yesterday.
Yeah.
And so, like, Schuster's done really well to shuffle the pack, and it shows that there's a little bit more depth there than people would expect. What kind of game are you expecting?
Yeah, I think this is an interesting one because you might think they're going to dig in. I'm not sure they will. I'm not sure it's their game necessarily. I mean,
no, I don't think so.
They played a Leipzig team that man for man is better than them at the weekend. They absolutely stuffed them. And they did that because they created spaces. And when their chances came, they were able to take them. I think it's going to be about whether they can get up the pitch. Villa are going to obviously play their game and look to set their tempo and look to dominate. But I think it's going to be about Freiburg when they have their chances to get up the pitch, win those free kicks and win those corners, try and make something happen with the set piece. They can look fragile at times, especially against top opposition. And that is my fear for them slightly. I think if Villa start well and they get the first goal, it could be a 3-0. It could be.
Yeah.
It could be a 3 or 4-0 because I've seen that happen to them against top sides time and time again, really. But what I've also seen, Andy, is I have seen them cause the big boys problems at times.
Yeah, and look, they've come so far. I think the other thing we have to point out, the legacy of Christian Streich really, is not just establishing them in the top flight. They've completely changed dimension. Since they've moved to Europa Park, they've got a big modern stadium that they fill up. It's noisy. You know, so they're a club that for them to establish themselves in the top flight is really something. For them to recover from the way that they missed out on the Champions League on the final day of last season, and you know, Ginter was in tears and he's seen a lot. You know, you can see how much it means to those players. You know, we're talking about Isco at Betis. To have guys who've experienced big moments at big clubs, and with Vincenzo Grifo, who's obviously been in the Italian national team as well, to get their total buy-in and commitment and to feel like this thing is everything, I feel that's absolutely invaluable. It'd be a really interesting game, really interesting occasion as well.
Yeah, I think it's going to be phenomenal. A proper David versus Goliath clash. Will Unai Emery win yet another Europa League, or will it be Freiburg, who have the greatest moment in their history? They have never won a trophy of any sort at all at the elite level. We're going to bring you live commentary of it on Wednesday. It's an 8 o'clock kickoff, so live commentary of that Europa League final. Plenty still to come on Trans Europe Express.
James Corden is with us in the studio.
Good morning.
Good morning, mate.
Good morning, James.
So happy to be here.
It's our pleasure. How are you?
I'm really well. Yeah, I'm very good.
Thank you for coming in.
It's a pleasure.
It's lovely. We've got so much to talk to you about.
For sure.
Before we talk about football, right?
Yes.
I was just going over old stuff that you've done, right?
Mm.
And I was watching with my producer Ollie this morning when you did the Sports Personality of the Year. I think it was 09, 07, I can't remember. It was nearly 20 years ago. And you stood up in front of everyone, right?
Yes.
You gave, as Smithy, you gave this massive speech.
Smithy won Coach of the Year.
And I said to the producer, he's got a good memory, right? How nerve-wracking must that have been for you? Was that just insane? Did you have autocue on that? Or was that...
Well, yeah, no, there was a prompter, but the issue was with that is we shot that 8 minutes
before they went
live for Sports Personality. So we only had one. We could only do it once.
Yeah.
From the standing up in the crowd, the walking through, doing all the stuff. So also, we had to make sure that lots of people were in the audience, because at Sports Personality they all wait in this room before they go out, and we had to go up to like Freddie Flintoff, and what we had to say to him, we had to go, Freddie, we're going to do this thing. Don't laugh along.
Okay.
Because it can't look like it's like a sort of roast monologue.
Yeah.
Which is why Freddie's such a brilliant actor, looks so angry in that we just make out like it's real. Don't just laugh along when we start saying all these things to different people. And the only instruction I was given was you can't interact with Capello, because they were like, you're not allowed to interact with Capello.
As Lewis Hamilton, now at Ferrari, dares to dream of a record 8th F1 world title, the Tifosi will be hoping the Brits can bring glory back to Italy. To many, Ferrari and Formula One are inseparable. They're the only team in the sport today to have competed in the first World Championship in 1950, are the most successful team in history, and have built some absolutely gorgeous cars. Their first driver's title was won in 1952 by Alberto Ascari. Considered one of F1's most dominant and best-loved champions, he drove the iconic Ferrari 500 and defended his title the year after. It was Juan Manuel Fangio in his Ferrari 250 who secured the team's next driver's title in 1956. Remember, he was world champion 5 times with 4 different teams. Mike Hawthorne, Phil Hill and John Surtees also won titles for Ferrari in the 50s and 60s, and the cars back then were beautiful, and they even sounded great, didn't they? Anyway, Ferrari went 11 years without winning a title until Niki Lauda won in 1975 in the iconic 312T. Throughout much of the 80s and 90s, though, Ferrari looked like they'd never go all the way again. Le Professeur Alain Prost came pretty close in 1990, but lost out to his bitter rival and former teammate at McLaren, Ayrton Senna. It was only when John Todt recruited a swathe of staff from outside of Italy, including Michael Schumacher, that the glory days returned 21 years after their last driver's title. The turn of the century saw the prancing horse sprint to an unprecedented 5 consecutive championship doubles. And after Schumacher left, Kimi Raikkonen reclaimed the driver's title immediately. But despite employing 1,500 people, the Iceman remains the last Ferrari world champion. So, 16 constructors' titles, 7 more than McLaren, and 15 drivers' titles, 4 more than, again, McLaren. Ferrari are truly Formula One's top team. Forza Ferrari.
You're listening to Danny Kelly's Trans-Europe Express on talkSPORT. Kevin Hatchard deputising for Danny tonight. Andy Brassell alongside me. We've got a fascinating hour coming up. We're going to talk all matters South American with Tim Vickery, as we always have the privilege of doing. We're also going to catch up with author David Arrowsmith, who's written a superb book called Killing Maradona. We're going to dig deep into that as well. We're going to give you an idea of who's been winning promotion from the big second leagues across Europe, who's been coming up from the Segunda in Spain, Bundesliga 2 in Germany, and we'll do our usual zoom around the leagues. It's all coming up on Trans-Europe Express. But it is one of my favourite parts of the show. We're going to catch up with the South American football expert Tim Vickery. And Tim, always catch up with you regarding the relegation battle in the Premier League first. And your Spurs sitting pretty, 1 point required from the final 2 games. How are we feeling about that?
How am I feeling? Hot, hot, hot. I never expected West Ham to go 3 in a row without a point. Obviously, no counting any chickens, but a point and we're safe. Good grief! I was absolutely convinced that Tottenham were going to go down, and it would have been deserved. But it looks like there may well be someone in that Premier League who deserves it even more than Tottenham do.
Tim, what's that joke that's been doing the rounds on Spurs Twitter this week? It's been that, Spurs have to go to a stadium where they've won about twice in 40 years, where all the fans absolutely hate the team, and where the only coherent thing that the board does is sack a string of managers. Oh, and they've got to go to Chelsea as well.
Yeah, good point. Good point. Well made. Yes, I offer no defence. I have no defence.
Tim, let's move on to more drama, but in a different vein, really. Neymar. We talked a lot about Neymar. We're going to keep talking about Neymar because he's always a fascinating subject. We're getting very, very close to finding out if Neymar's going to be in this World Cup squad, whether Carlo Ancelotti's going to push the Neymar button like you're summoning Batman. And he was involved in yet more extraordinary drama today.
Yeah, and this really is unbelievable. It's the final game with D-Day -1. Ancelotti calls up the squad. I think it's 9 p.m. your time tomorrow night. The final game, Santos at home to Curitiba, a relatively minor first division side, newly promoted. And Santos, to give Neymar a boost, they switched the game from the town of Santos, which is quite a small city by Brazilian standards, an hour up the hill to the massive Sao Paulo, when Santos Stadium is about 15,000. They took this one to Corinthians ground, built for the World Cup, and they had like nearly 50,000 in there. So it's an entirely different atmosphere. All of this to boost Neymar. It's the game where he played his first World Cup match against Croatia in 2014, scored a terrific goal in that one. And they always play the national anthem before league games, and he's in tears before the national anthem, and it's all, what a big occasion, and Curitiba are supposed to be the sacrificial lambs. And the score at half-time was Santos 0, Curitiba 3. And were it not for the goalkeeper, it would have been 5. And Neymar doing nothing. As, to be fair, he hasn't done a great deal. And if he is called up tomorrow, it will be an act of faith rather than on the basis of anything that he's done for Santos, who arguably have maybe even been a better side without him. So we're into the second half, and Santos are trying, but without making much of an impression. And Neymar picks up a knock, and he's off the field receiving treatment. And Santos decides to make a substitution. And someone, not the Santos coach, not the player involved, and certainly not Neymar, put up the number 10. Decided that the number 10 was come in, number 10, your time is up. And on comes the substitute. And Neymar, of course, is that number 10. So he's been substituted. He doesn't know he's been substituted. He is off the field receiving treatment, wanting to come back on. So the substitution has happened. And then he comes back on. He doesn't know he's been substituted. And then it's pointed out to him that you've got to go. And so there's this huge pile-up on the touchline because the little chip that you've got to hand to the official, it says number 31 is coming off, not number 10. And poor old number 31 has crossed entirely for he's the left back. He's crossed entirely from one side of the field to the other in order to be taken off, only to be told, no, get back out there. Neymar's coming off. And so quite why it was Neymar who was substituted, quite who made the mistake, could have been one of the Santos coaching staff. It could have been the match delegate, just seeing Neymar receive treatment and assuming that that he was going to be the one coming off. But this is kicking up an almighty fuss, which I fear overshadows yet another mediocre performance. Quite what's going to happen with this, I don't know. Whether Santos might even apply to have the game replayed. And it could well be the case that he couldn't really have come back anyway. And he did limp away at the end of the 90 minutes, and he won't play this week. So he has picked up a knock. But it's one of those stories, it couldn't happen to anyone else, could it? It could only happen to Neymar. So we will find out tomorrow if he is going to the World Cup. At the start of last week, the well-informed sources in Brazilian journalism were saying, no, it looks like he's out of the 26. He won't be in. By the middle of the week, the well-informed sources of Brazilian journalism were saying, well, Neymar's in. He's in the 26. So no one
we
really
knew all
knows.
along.
Indeed, yeah. No one really knows what's going on. As I say, it would be a leap of faith for Ancelotti because he's not really evolving. There's no sign there that the player pre the injury of October 23 still exists. It would obviously be a different context. It's an entirely different context because you're surrounding him with the likes of Vinny Jr. and Rafinha. And you can see in football terms how that might work, how he could be the man slipping the passes through. But from the whole point of view of group dynamics, is there any chance of both Neymar and the group seeing Neymar as a member of the supporting cast? On the only time in his whole career that he's ever been a member of the supporting cast was that very successful spell at Barcelona, when he was obviously part of the supporting cast to Lionel Messi, who is his senior in more than one way. I don't think anyone in the squad at the moment would see themselves as senior to Neymar. So in terms of group dynamics, and obviously this is a situation that Ancelotti hasn't dealt with in his time as Brazil coach because he hasn't played.
Yeah.
So what on earth is going to go on? And if in the entire insignificance of my opinion, I wouldn't bother with it. Because I think
it's too much noise. It's too much noise constantly.
Exactly. It's too much of a circus. And bearing in mind that I don't think he can be the guy. And I don't think he can be emotionally the leader.
Yeah.
Because he just gets everyone going all the more. If you're Ancelotti, you know those Italian coaches, they're obsessed with mentality. And if you're Ancelotti, you don't want to hit on people like Rafinha saying, yeah, Neymar is the guy for the World Cup. Because he can't be.
No.
In the best of hypotheses, he can't be. He can only now be a member of the supporting cast. And if I'm Ancelotti hearing that, I'm thinking, no, Rafinha, you got to be the guy. Vinny Jr., you got to be the guy. Let's stop hiding behind Neymar, in the hope that if it all goes wrong, everything gets thrown at him. And let's start taking responsibility yourself. So I wouldn't. We will find out what Ancelotti is going to do in a little less than 24 hours. I can hardly wait.
Firstly, Tim, the substitution thing today reminds me a little bit of when Raymond Domenech's wife was playing a celebrity poker tournament and she took her eye off her hand and the croupier picked it up. And of course, once he's picked up your hand, he can't give it back. So she was out of the game when she started effing and jeffing, and a little bit like Neymar, where he's got the piece of paper and he's holding it up to the camera today. But whatever happens with the Brazil squad, when are we going to hear about Argentina and Colombia? Because they've announced their 55s, haven't they? But they've got to whittle it down from then. So when are we going to know the final 26 in both of those cases?
Possibly not till start of June. I mean, you don't have to do it yet. You've got a few days yet. Ecuador haven't announced anything. Uruguay haven't announced. Although obviously Marcelo Bielsa is not going to announce, is he? And Marcelo Bielsa doesn't announce his usual squads. And they don't announce, and this is really cruel, because the poor old Uruguayan journalists, every FIFA date, they just have to wait outside the team hotel and cross them off as they turn up, And then when they all arrive, then the Uruguayan FA, when the last man has arrived, then the Uruguayan FA will announce who the players called up are. And it's Bielsa going out of his way to irritate people, irritate the press.
Of course.
Don't know yet. And there's one or two warm-up friendlies to come. Highlights, well, from the Colombia's 55, there's a kind of veteran striker now, Roja Martinez, who's playing in Saudi. He hasn't been called up. and his response was to get onto social media and say that the coach, Nestor Lorenzo, former Swindon Town defender, doesn't know diddly squat. In words a little bit more vulgar than that.
A man of the county ground knowing diddly squat? Absolutely not.
In terms of Argentina, and one of the key things for me is what do they do with not having Di Maria? How do you replace the irreplaceable? At the start of this cycle, there was the hope that it might be Garnacho, who has done little else apart from irritate people for the last few years, but he is in the 55. Now that's a surprise to me. Although I do wonder if the Di Maria figure is going to be Valentino Barco. The one-time Brighton player who, just because he can be the joker man. He can come off the bench, he can play either flank, he can run at people. And I wonder if that's going to be what Scaloni looks at, just to give him that little bit of unpredictability that Di Maria could. And obviously, Di Maria did so much else. I mean, for me, he's one of the most underrated players in the history of football.
Same.
And I think it's impossible to just a bit like rock and roll. They just don't know what's going to replace him. But we'll find out when Argentina name their 26.
And just a word on River Plate, favourites for the Argentinian Championship. After winning the most lost game ever last Sunday.
Yeah, I was telling you about this last Sunday, the bizarre format of the Argentine Championship, how the knockout phase is one and done, Kev, in your memorable.
Yes.
And it's River Plate against, it's either Argentinos Juniors or Belgrano. Belgrano equalised with the last kick of the game, so we've gone into extra time with that one. But River Plate, who yesterday beat Di Maria's Rosario Central, in midweek they beat Gimnasia. But on Sunday, they were kicking off just as we spoke. They were playing San Lorenzo last Sunday. And San Lorenzo, after about half an hour, had a man sent off. And despite that, took the lead. River Plate got an equaliser, but we go into extra time. And the 10 men of San Lorenzo go 2-1 up. And they are 2-1 up until, literally, with no journalistic hyperbole, the last kick of the game, which is not even a shot. It's one of my favourite players, a little Colombian genius, Juan Fernando Quintero. That magical left foot. And it's one of those that's a nightmare for the goalkeeper because it's a cross that's also a shot. It's a cross that invites the header, but the trajectory of it takes it in. It just agonisingly inside the far post because the keeper can't react at first because he's looking for the header. So anyway, River Plate with the last kick of extra time equalise and we go to penalties. River Plate miss their first two penalties, meaning that it works out that San Lorenzo have effectively 4 match points. River Plate miss another one, or if San Lorenzo score one of their last two, it's all over. San Lorenzo miss their last two. One is saved, the other is skied over the bar. You know, that thing of putting it in the top corner, but the adrenaline kicks in. No one has ever missed a penalty for going too low. So we're back level and we go to sudden death. And River Plate score, and San Lorenzo, up comes a left footer. I'm not a big fan of left footers who are not specialists. You know which way they're going to put it. And he puts it that way to the keeper's left. And the keeper dives and he tips it onto the post. And from the post, it rolls all along the goal line.
Wow.
And just out of the goal the other side. So River Plate go through. And here they are, 2 games later, in the final, which will be on a neutral ground next weekend. And they will be favourites. But they were out against San Lorenzo, not once, but twice. And it just shows, when it is, Kev, one and done, it just shows how fine the margin can be between the possible triumph of a victory next week and what would have been seen as humiliating failure against San Lorenzo a week ago.
Tim, always in education. Great to hear about all matters South American with Tim Vickery. We're going to head over to the PGA Championship. talkSPORT's Rupert Bell has an update for us.
Well, I tell you what, we're on the verge of something very special happening here because Aaron Rai, who has just worked his way up the golfing ranks with some good victories, not only on the European Tour, but obviously in America as well, but he's just holed a monster putt on the 17th hole, and that has moved him to 9 under par and a 3-shot lead with 1 hole to play for the Englishman from Wolverhampton. No Englishman has won this title since 1919 when it was a match play event. But Aaron Rice, since the 9th hole when he had an eagle, has just played lights out golf, which has put daylight between him and the rest of the field. Remember, we started the day with such a compacted leaderboard and no one looked as if they were able to get a stranglehold at this event. Well, Aaron Rice has done exactly that. But it's not over yet because John Rahm's still in the mix at 5 under. He's playing the par 5, has a chance for a birdie to get to 6 under. But that birdie for Aaron Rice may just give him one hand on the Wanamaker Trophy. An unbelievable performance from the man from Wolverhampton, because we might, as I say, have our first winner of the USPGA from England since 1919.
PGA Championship update on talkSPORT with Arnold Clark. Get the UK's best used car deals guaranteed.
Plenty still to come on Trans-Europe Express.
Let me ask this. Out of all the players that Tottenham have, in terms of technical dribbling ability, is Madders not able to change the direction of the ball at drop of a hat? Is he not, though? Is that not his bag? Yeah. That's what he can do, right? Yeah. Come on now.
How often?
Come on now.
What we talking? You're talking about James Maddison. Like,
here we go. He hates him.
I don't care about James Maddison, but we can't pretend that James Maddison is some sort of...
Madders would walk into your squad right now.
James Maddison?
Maddison would walk into your squad right now.
There isn't a Chelsea...
And furthermore, in terms of your 10s and creative players, if Madders was on his day, he'd be the best one in your team. On his day, yeah.
This is the most wild thing I've ever heard.
Who are your cams? It's not. Cole Palmer.
You talk wild comments. It's very rare that I'm speechless, but this is that moment.
Cole Palmer, I'm a fan of Cole. I think he's great. And on his day, he's an amazing player, yeah. I do think Madders, though, on his day, provides something that you don't have in your squad right now.
James Maddison wouldn't have got into a Chelsea squad in the last 40 years.
That's insane.
There isn't one Chelsea squad.
He's getting this. There isn't a Chelsea squad with James Maddison. Start for you now.
James Maddison.
While he was injured, he would have started for you.
James, do you know what? If he was part of our squad, do you know what he'd be doing? He'd be vlogging it from the sidelines, sitting with opposing fans' YouTube channel.
You know what, yeah? My Spurs friends have warned me about you, yeah?
Yeah, trust me.
But look, I respect it. I actually respect what you're saying. Like, it's fair enough. You're entitled to an opinion. You're wrong, but you're entitled to an opinion.
I'm completely correct.
No,
you are wrong. Trust me. You're wrong. You're actually wrong. He's wrong. Tell him.
Do you know part of the reason why Tottenham are in this predicament?
Go on.
It's because of the standards that are set by Vice-Captain James Maddison, sitting in the stands, vlogging with angry Ginge as you concede goals against Man United.
I have no problem with that at all. I think he's a great player. If he wants to vlog while he's injured, he's got an ACL. What do you want him to do? Sit around moping?
That's a Tottenham mentality.
You get in your squad.
All right.
Maddison.
Yeah.
Maddison doesn't
He would.
You've got so many players in your squad.
He would.
Like,
by the way,
the same winger.
By the way, I just want to say, Tottenham mentality is Chelsea's mentality to wear that gold badge that you won that Disney Cup. That's your mentality.
The latest episode of How to Win the World Cup is now live. Matt Ford and Alex Brooker are alongside French World Cup winner Emmanuel Petit to talk all about France ahead of the tournament this summer. That's the How to Win the World Cup podcast, available now on the talkSPORT app or your favourite podcast provider. Now, there is a terrific book coming out soon called Killing Maradona. It's written by David Arrowsmith, who did a wonderful job with the Narco Ball book as well. And delighted to say that we can talk to David now. David, you've chronicled Maradona's life extraordinarily well in this book, and I've been lucky enough to read it. And what really strikes me is that very early on in his life, Diego Maradona, who of course goes on to be a world superstar, he's very much a commodity. He's very much a pawn. And you see this track all the way through the book that he is somebody who's pulled in lots of different directions and used by lots of different people.
Absolutely. I think he's an incredibly complex character, and his life is an incredibly complex life and a fascinating one. And I think we're very aware of his brilliant footballing ability and what he achieved on the pitch and some of the demons that he had personally. And I think what I wanted to do with the book was, as you say, show some of those external forces as well that influenced him, that on occasion kind of took control of him, that he sometimes allowed to guide him and take control of him, for better or worse. And you know, they were really some of the most powerful people and organizations, you know, on the planet. So yeah, he was pushed and pulled, and he forced himself into places that created incredible drama and tension, and jeopardy for him, both on and off the pitch.
David, when you're talking about incredibly powerful organisations, I think a lot of people who know who you're talking about is known for his relationship with the Camorra, the Neapolitan mafia, when he was playing for Napoli. Now, it's really, I suppose, an extraordinary part of his career, because it's the part of his club career that is known best for what he did with Napoli, taking a hitherto provincial club to winning 2 Scudetti, changing the perception of them worldwide forever. But was this the point where he lost control of his life, or do you think this kind of happened before that, when he was in Barcelona?
I think, as you said, that's an era that we're very familiar with. Was chronicled brilliantly in Asif Kapadia's documentary on him as well. And I think that's a really interesting starting point as a way to kind of look at what I was trying to do with the book, really, is to show those power players and the kind of control that was exerted over him. I think it started much, much earlier in his life. I think it started almost from the day he was born, not quite. I think there's something fated about his life. You know, it's kind of a Shakespearean tragedy, really, his story from start to finish. It couldn't really have gone any other way than it did. I don't know. You just kind of look at the twists and turns and the decisions that were made for him and by him. And so I think that element of control, or attempt to control, started much, much earlier, from his childhood, from the way he was treated as a child player, all the way through to becoming a professional in his previous clubs, to Napoli as well. You know, his relationship with Josep Nunez at Barcelona, I think was a power struggle, you know, that Diego lost ultimately. And so people were always, I think, trying to use him and to control him, the junta in Argentina, for political gain. So I think really that's what I was hoping would be a kind of big part of the book, would be to really show people the extent to which he was used and, I would say, manipulated, not always unknowingly, unwittingly, not always without some benefit to himself. But there were some big, powerful players, and I think sometimes he thought he could get the better of them, and sometimes he was wrong about that.
That's the really interesting thing that you've hit upon there, David, actually, because, you know, you said that, yes, he was manipulated, yes, he was used, but sometimes you get the sense, and this comes through really well in the book, that he knew to an extent, on certain occasions, he was being used, and kind of just turned a blind eye, didn't he? So there's an element of naivety, but there's also an element that he kind of knew and went along with certain things.
Definitely. I think sometimes he liked to play the naive card, or the kind of the kid from the Potrero, card that he didn't know any better, or he could just kind of put his fingers in his ears. He was clearly not a stupid man. He was clearly not unintelligent. I think he picked and chose a little bit as to what he wanted to see and hear, and what he wanted to believe and not. And the phrase I kind of keep coming back to really is the truth according to Diego. I think he had his version of his story and his version of good and bad and right and wrong. And I think he was quite a black and white character like that. He liked to see the world like that. And he liked to decide if he thought something was just and fair to him, to his fellow players, to people around the game that he cared about so very much. But he maybe wasn't always aligned with everybody else, I think, as to what was right or wrong, what was good or bad, what was moral or not. And it suited him sometimes to kind of blur some of those boundaries, I think.
David, with the World Cup coming up, I mean, I guess a lot of people of a certain vintage, I'm not trying to put us necessarily in that together, but have thought of Messi on the same sort of line as Maradona since he got his World Cup. Now, of course, Maradona is so defined by his World Cups in different ways. But in terms of the way that Messi's career has been run, I mean, there are some parallels between him and Maradona, the greatest player in the world, winning the World Cup with Argentina, being fated from a very early age, people around him being worried that he was too small at an early age, and steps being taken to change that and to remedy that. Obviously, they come from very different backgrounds, but how much of what happened to Maradona governed the way that Messi's career was run, do you think?
I think you're right. The incredible similarities, even some of the goals they scored and so on, in the way they played the game to a certain extent. I think, probably the phrase that might most commonly get used is sort of Maradona, walk to allow Messi to run. He had to break in the world of football, really, and he had to be broken by it, I think, to get to a place probably where Messi could go that far and that long and then finally win that World Cup. I'm not sure that would have happened to Diego. I'm not sure he would have been afforded that opportunity. I think I wanted the book to really show the extraordinary extent to which he had to fight and force his way through this existence that he had on and off the pitch, just to take to the pitch, just to play. How he, his body was kind of ground into the dirt, basically, to enable him to take part in all these matches for club, for country, for charity, for all kinds of reasons, for raising money to pay for his own salary and his own transfer fee, and for the expansion of stadia that chairman had financed. So I think all these incredible pressures that were on Maradona were on him before Messi existed. And that's not to belittle the pressure that Messi has been under for so many years. And that added pressure of coming after Maradona and having to carry that shirt and carry that country. I don't think anyone underestimates how difficult that has been for Argentina and for Messi. But I think when you look at some of the things that Diego was involved in and went through, and like I say, not all of them forced upon him, many of them embraced wholeheartedly by himself or sort of naively accepted by himself.
Sorry, David, we're going to go to the... Sorry, David, to interrupt. We're going to go to the PGA Championship and Rupert Bell.
Well, Aaron Rai about to close out his round. A birdie putt at the final hole. Has he given it enough? Well, it's just come up maybe 6 inches short. But the Englishman, who has just torn his way to the top of the leaderboard with a magnificent display on the back nine. The man from Wolverhampton has finished at 9 under, a sensational 65. His run started with a magnificent eagle at the par 5 ninth, and then, as calm as you like, he went about his business. The icing on the cake was a sensational 68-foot putt on the 17th to move him to 9 under. He couldn't close it out with a birdie, but maybe, with still playing players out on the course. He goes into the clubhouse with a 3-stroke lead, with John Rahm still out on the course and others still hoping. But really now you feel it is Aaron Ryan's title, the first Englishman to lift the Wanamaker Trophy since 1919, when Jim Barnes won the second of his titles when it was a match play event. Aaron Rye, 31 years of age, from Wolverhampton, a slightly eccentric figure. He plays with 2 gloves and he just quietly, he's not a showman, but my goodness, today his play around this really difficult course has elevated him to a major winner, barring the most extraordinary turn of events. He's hugging his wife, a golf professional from India, and yet they know the magnitude of this achievement, because Aaron Rye, who has worked so hard to get to this position with big wins on the DP World Tour, but now he's about to call himself a major winner, and it's an Englishman winning the USPGA for the first time since for 107 years. Aaron Rye has got his name on that Wanamaker Trophy with the most extraordinary display. Bearing in mind, coming into this final round, there were so many players in with chances. John Rahm, Rory McIlroy, Justin Rose, Scotty Scheffler, but it's the quiet man from Wolverhampton who's going to lift the trophy in Philadelphia. 250 years since independence from for America. It's an Englishman back in Philadelphia lifting the crown.
PGA Championship update on talkSPORT with Arnold Clark. Get the UK's best used car deals guaranteed.
Well, it could be an absolutely extraordinary achievement there from Aaron Rye, the first Englishman potentially to win the PGA Championship in over a century. David, sorry I interrupted you there. Just one final one from you. There's a launch event for the book going on tomorrow night. Just tell us a little bit about that.
That's right. The book officially is published on Thursday, but we're having a little launch event in Bermondsey in London at the Blue Monk. If you search online for Eventbrite and my name and Maradona, hopefully you'll find where you can get free tickets or pre-order a signed copy of the book. I'll be there dedicating and signing books for anybody who purchases one. And I believe somebody from your side of the desk might be with me, Kevin.
Yeah, there's a really good-looking guy who's going to be chairing that event tomorrow. I'm not quite sure who that could be, but that's what I've
Come
heard.
and join me and Kevin in Bermondsey if you can make it.
Exactly. Do come along. It should be great. Thanks to David Arrowsmith for that book, Killing Maradona. Well worth a read. Plenty still to come on Trans Europe Express.
Ben White is to miss the rest of Arsenal's season and is set to be ruled out of the World Cup. A suspected knee ligament injury for Ben. He picked it up on Sunday. I think it was a 50-50, wasn't it? With Somerville of West Ham. Now, up until now, Tuchel has ignored Trent Alexander-Arnold since his move to Real Madrid this summer. Could it be goodbye Ben and hello Trent? What do you think?
My gut feeling is Tuchel just doesn't fancy Trent, no matter who's fit or not, to be honest, from a defensive point of view. That's how it feels. The recent squad, he had, 36, and he didn't put him in, so I don't see why I'd be putting him in now.
You think he's decided he's not going to be featured?
It feels that way.
Yeah.
I might be completely wrong, but
no matter what.
Yeah, I don't think he'd be going. It's a shame for Ben White because he seems to be in the good books for Tuchel, and he's just started to get his form back a little bit, playing regularly because Timber's injury. He's a decent player.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I know Gary Neville had a little criticism of the way he made that tackle. I kind of make him right in a way, but the problem you've got now, because I missed the final once by dangling a leg. Rio come through me hard, Rio Ferdinand, the way it leads it was. And I did my ligaments, missed the final because of it. And I look back on the tackle and think, yeah, I should have gone in full tilt. Problem you've got now with the way the rules are, especially with the follow-through rule, even if you go in full tilt and you do get the ball, but you catch someone on the way through,
and you get a red card.
Yeah, it actually encourages you to be a bit more tentative.
So what is it when you're going in fairly committed, but don't end up truly committed? I mean, Gary Neville said Ben White just hangs his leg there. It's poor. He's got to be stronger than that. He's hurt himself there.
Yeah, and that's my point.
He says you're asking for trouble by doing that.
Yeah, he's right.
Now, do you fancy £25,000 in your hand, completely tax-free? At talkSPORT, our competition's just got a whole lot bigger, with even more prizes up for grabs to give you that winning feeling. To celebrate, we're giving you the chance to win big with 25 grand. But you have to hurry. Entries close tomorrow at 4 p.m. And here's what you need to do. For your chance to win, head to talksportwin.com or text WIN to 83338. Texts and online entries cost £2.50 plus your standard network rate, or call 0343 418 7260. Entries must be in by tomorrow at 4 p.m. and that's when you'll need to answer your phone if it rings. 18 plus, UK residents only. This is a network promotion. Full T's and C's at talksportwin.com. So for your chance to win, text WIN to 83338 now. So we're going to have a quick look at some of the teams that are coming up to the big leagues across Europe, Andy. And let's start with Germany, because today Elversberg have won promotion to the Bundesliga. It's a stadium that's only got a capacity of £10,000. Elversberg doesn't even have a train station or a town hall. This is really quite extraordinary.
Yeah, so I've been researching this so we can organise our trip there next season. Closest to Saarbrücken, we could fly to Kaiserslautern, I think. And
who wouldn't want to do that?
Maybe we could hire a car there. Look, there are a few different options, but Waze alone will not do it, I think it's fair to say. Look, it's an extraordinary story, and what I think is really interesting about it, Kev, is the compare-contrast. Because I guess with a few of these teams we're talking about, we love the fairy tale, don't we? We love the team making it like Elversberg. But as well, people are very excited about Schalke being back up in the Bundesliga after a couple of years away, because it's felt by a lot of people, and we don't want to get all Claudio Lotito about this, that big clubs need to be in the Bundesliga. Now, I think Bundesliga as far is quite interesting, isn't it? Because there's quite a lot of teams that get stuck in there, and like Hanover, who just missed out on the playoff place, it's not going to be them. It's going to be Paderborn, who play the two-legged game against Wolfsburg to either go up, stay up. So Hertha are stuck in there as well. You know, there are some really enormous teams that find it very difficult to get out of the Zweite Bundesliga.
Dusseldorf, by the way, Fortuna Dusseldorf have gone down to the second tier today. That is an absolutely enormous story, because that's a big football club that's been pushing to win promotion season upon season, but this time they've gone down. In France, Le Mans and Troyes have gone up. Saint-Etienne could still come up through the playoff. Troyes, part of the City group, and quite a controversial part of it as well at times. You might remember Savinho was a Troyes player technically, but never actually played for the club. Venezia and Frosinone going up in Italy. But Andy, just a quick word on Spain, because we've got Racing Santander, who are definitely going to go up after a whole load of financial issues, and a big name from the past in football, really, and looks as though they could be coming back, Deportivo La Coruña.
Yeah, so 14 years away for Racing. They're on course to win the championship as well. Huge celebrations Sardinero last night, and Asier Libre, the former Athletic striker with the big beard, he was a huge part of it. No word on whether he played his trumpet at the end, which he normally does after one of his teams win a trophy. But yeah, Deportivo won today as well, so it would be huge for them to come back up. I saw them just miss out at Mallorca in a promotion playoff. That's another thing to watch out for as well, the promotion playoffs in both Italy and in Spain. The ones in Spain go on till like the third week in June. So, you know, you had players like last time Deportivo were in it, they missed their star striker because he went off to the World Cup with Romania. So, yeah. Don't change Spanish football. Don't change.
Lovely stuff. Yeah, sorting out fixtures just the day before, maybe, at times. Coming up after the break, we're going to go around the leagues.
PGA Championship update on talkSPORT with Arnold Clark. Get the UK's best used car deals, guaranteed.
We've got Jason Bourne sitting in front of the back three.
The ball goes over the top.
Yeah, but Jason Bourne's just going to eat everyone up.
You got Shaggy running in behind
No,
Jaws.
Shaggy's didn't make the team. You binned him.
Who's there?
Talkie, Jaws and Scooby-Doo.
Okay. All right, fine, okay.
All right, here we go, boys. Well done, everyone. This is a good team. Our Spy Sports Bar 11. In goal, we've got Octopussy.
Tell us why.
Well, it's just good arms. Good arms.
They're not...
back three.
Arms and legs.
We've got the back three, the walkie-talkie, Jaws, and Scooby-Doo. Solid back three.
I'm happy with that.
Up and down Scooby-Doo, walkie-talkie, good community, and Jaws, edit and kick it. Jason Bourne in midfield, eating everyone up with the binoculars for vision in the middle of the pitch. Inspector Gadget, player number 10. The main man, does everything. He's got the lot. Johnny English, out left. Can go missing. Can be a bit of a mess, but he always comes up with something. Right wing, the Maverick. Got the mojo, Austin Powers. And then up front, we've got the fake moustache, he's good in the box. And we've got James Bond, because he shoots to kill. That is
I think we pulled it together, you know.
Bar 11 on spying. All right, and we're going to carry this on, by the way, guys, because up next, it gets better. We are joined by former British military intelligence officer Philip Ingram to tell us where it all went wrong for Southampton and Spygate.
You're listening to Trans-Europe Express on talkSPORT with Kevin Hatchard and Andy Brassell. Let's go back over to the US PGA Championship, an extraordinary story developing. Let's hear from talkSPORT's Rupert Bell.
Yeah, well, Aaron Rai can officially now begin to celebrate the fact that he is a major champion, because Alex Smalley is playing the 18th, but he can no longer get anywhere near Aaron Rai's 9 under par total. This is an extraordinary achievement by the Englishman in the place where founding fathers are, and of course hopefully this might be the herald of a big English summer in the States. But for Aaron Rai, coming into this very much sort of under the spotlight in terms of some of the big name British players like Rory McIlroy, obviously, who won the Masters, Tommy Fleetwood, many others, Justin Rose. But Aaron Rai, over the last few years, has quietly gone about his business, whether it be on the DP World Tour, but also in America, where he's a winner, winning a tournament on the PGA Tour. But this performance was just stunning. When you look at the way this final round was set up, with so many players in with chances, big name players, Scotty Scheffler, Rory McIlroy, Jon Rahm, who's eventually finished second, Aaron Rai kept his composure after a bit of a shaky start, but it all changed when he had a magnificent eagle at the par 5 9th hole, and then from that hole onwards, he came home in 5 under par to finish with a 65. The 31-year-old from Wolverhampton, who's just worked relentlessly to get better and better in a sort of unshowy kind of way. He doesn't show too much emotion on the course, but he works relentlessly at his game, and all that hard work has now paid off for the 31-year-old, that he will be only the second Englishman to see his name on the Wanamaker Trophy. The last player who came close was David Lynn back in 2012, but Aaron Rai can now look at that trophy knowing that that's going to be his to covet, and his name will be on it. As I say, only the second Englishman to be added to that name. Of course, Rory McIlroy, as a British player, has won it. Padraig Harrington, who had a terrific week this week, was also a former winner of this. But in terms of Englishmen, it's been a barren time. And when Jim Barnes won it in 1919, it was a match play event. For Rory McIlroy, he flattered to deceive after a disappointing start. He never really got it going on the final round. Finished at 4 under. Jon Rahm had his moments, but no one was able to grab the tournament by the scruff of their neck until Aaron Rai came out of the pack on the back 9. That's where you say you win or lose a major. How do you play the back 9 of a major? Well, today, Aaron Rai was absolutely impeccable, and he now is a major winner. Many people say that's a surprise, but people who know the game of golf know this is a reward for hard work for a very, very long time. From the man from Wolverhampton, has now come out of the shadows and is now the next British golfing superstar.
PGA Championship update on talkSPORT with Arnold Clark. Get the UK's best used car deals guaranteed.
An incredible story, beautifully told, as always, by Rupert Bell. Andy, we don't have a huge amount of time, but we are going to zoom around the leagues. We're going to really turn the turbos on here. Let's get an update from that Slavia-Sparta-Prague derby, because we gave people that story last week in terms of that game being abandoned right at the end. There's been an update on that now.
Yeah, that's right. The game was awarded to Sparta. Despite the fact they were seconds away from losing it, and Slavia were seconds away from confirming the league. It was given as a 3-0 defeat to Slavia. But due to the results this week, they've gone on and won the league anyway. So it's not made any difference. So that's where the parallels with the way that the game in Scotland yesterday ended, or didn't end, as some people are suggesting. Of course, it's been officially confirmed that it did end, and what a title race, by the way.
It was absolutely extraordinary, that title race. Let's go to Portugal, because Jose Mourinho we associate with incredible achievements, and he has achieved something truly incredible, because he's led Benfica to an unbeaten league season and somehow managed to finish third.
which we flagged on here a number of weeks ago, didn't we, as the most likely situation. Now, look, they were kind of let back in, Benfica, to the Champions League race. Of course, only the top 2 qualify for the Champions League. The third go into the Europa League, which is a huge failure for Benfica. There's no getting around it. Of course, Porto confirmed as champions a while ago because Sporting dropped 4 points in 4 days against the bottom 2 teams in the division. However, the fact that Benfica didn't manage to get it over the line against Braga in the week, despite being given a very, very generous penalty towards the end of that, which allowed them to emerge with the 2-2 draw and preserve that unbeaten record, it meant that they went into the last day this weekend hoping for a slip from Sporting. Didn't happen. Sporting beat Gil Vicente 3-0 on a day where they said goodbye to Morita and Hjulmand, the captain as well, who's expected to move on. No Champions League for Mourinho, unless he changes clubs.
Yes, which could well happen. Somebody else who could change clubs, Andy, Marco Silva. He keeps being linked with Benfica. Obviously, he's been at Fulham a long time, but Benfica, people should remember, especially for a Portuguese coach, it's an enormous job.
Yeah, and there's resource there as well, because remember, before Sergio Conceição took the Porto job, Marco Silva was offered that job, but when he was offered the job on the basis of win us our first title for 4 years and please sell 100 million euros worth of players, I think he decided he'd rather go elsewhere. That's what he did in the end, and it started the Conceição reign in Portugal. So look, I think this is different because he's got backing at Benfica. No Champions League football, of course, but still, huge club.
And an amazing story potentially in the Netherlands, because we've talked about Ajax being rubbish for quite some time on this show.
Yes.
Even though they came very close to winning the league last season, they've come nowhere near this season. They could fail to qualify. They could fail to qualify for the first time for Europe in over 6 decades.
Yeah, 61 years. That would be extraordinary. So what they've got to do is they've got to play a playoff to get into, because they finished in 5th place. They drew away at Heerenveen today. They wanted the game called off because it was absolutely pouring with rain and the players were sliding all over the pitch. Referee said no, saw it to its natural conclusion. It was a 0-0 draw. They've looked quite blunt on a number of occasions this season. So it means that they've got to play playoffs, a semi-final against Groningen and then a final against Utrecht or Heerenveen should they win that. But they can't play it in Amsterdam. They're playing it at Volendam instead because Harry Styles is playing at the Johan Cruyff Arena.
Of course he is.
You couldn't make it up.
Harry Styles trumps all. I think we've learnt that by now. Andy, thank you for the last 3 hours. It's been an education and a pleasure as always. It's absolutely flown by tonight, I have to say. It's been a mad dash through all of the great European stories. The results of our poll, we asked you, where will Xabi Alonso's Chelsea finish next season? Only 8% of you said they'd be Premier League title winners. 39% said they would qualify for the Champions League. 32% felt they might qualify for either the Europa League or the Conference League, and 21% of you felt that Xabi Alonso would fail to qualify for Europe in his first season as the Chelsea boss. Congratulations to Wolverhampton's Aaron Rai for winning the US PGA Championship in golf. A really amazing achievement. First Englishman to win it in over 100 years. Coming up after us, it is How to Win the World Cup. You've been listening to Trans Europe Express.
what? We don't listen. Middlesbrough went 1-0 up, Jamie.
He's right.
Right, they played brilliant. The first half, we scored an equaliser, right, and that done it. That put it to bed because the second half we come out flying, mate. Middlesbrough had nothing. They were leggy. They were gone.
I think the rule is if you're going to
great call.
don't get caught.
What? What's that?
The rule is you're going to cheat.
Is that your analysis of?
I think
Spygate.
I think well,
if you're going to cheat, don't get caught.
Well, I think if you cheat, no, rule number one, don't get caught. Can't get caught cheating, mate. Can you?